I'm always flirting with pain, she like to hurt me and maim. I'm always working to change, but she's still lurking the same. I keep on building a dynasty while the haters be trying me, but they hate from inside. You see, hate themselves in society, so I let them speak quietly while my actions speak wider. See, they be hiding in privacy with the screen. Oh, the irony to hate someone who's trying to be whatever they would like to be. We all feel the anxiety, we make our own rivalries. Yo, so where is all the positivity? I feel like we all just hate on everything, is killing me. Thoughts build quick, causing different possibilities. Negative thoughts will cause different disabilities. So do better, work hard under pressure. If you got no time, work smarter than ever. Don't ever let them tell you that you can't never say never. And turn your mind into the truest to go-getters. Never stop, I'll get it if I want it. Gotta make to myself a promise. I won't quit, keep going till I got it. I won't give up till I'm on top, yeah. You know I'm always honest, there ain't no way I'm ever stopping. I won't quit, keep going till I got it. I won't give up till I'm on top, yeah.
Hello and welcome to AWOL Wednesday, and already the sneezer shroom is too big because
We're taking over.
I did not, man, who am I? Am I Pandy all of a sudden?
Oh my god.
Who do I have here with me today?
What is up, Cole? It is the Kellen guy. How's it going?
This is so big.
It is huge.
All right. How you been? How's your altered been? What are you
Hey,
expecting?
can't complain. I'm pretty sleepy, but very happy to just hang out and watch some AWOL with you. Yeah, I played some No Unique Championship earlier, which was fun, and commentated that at the same time. I'm very happy to not be both playing and commentating at the same time for AWOL tonight, though. So, yeah.
You commentated and played?
Yeah, I've done it before. I noticed that the quality of the commentary did drop in my last match against Lindaway, but otherwise it was totally fine. It's just really hard to play against Lindaway, and I got a little bit distracted.
Oh no. You hate to see it.
It's true. It's true.
Let's see. Nope, that's not you. Where did you go?
We have less than a minute
Oh,
left
there
until
you
the
are.
start of the week 10 Wednesday AWOL, so that should be cool. It's another chance for some people to snag their invitational invites. And yeah, good cast of names that we recognize already participating, and then a few people who I haven't seen before, so that's sweet.
Yeah, I shared the stream over in Altered Corner and had at least one person mention that they signed up last minute because they did not know about the AWOL tournament. That kind of goes to show that when you're in it, you're in the tournaments on Board Game Arena doing one every week. Not everyone knows everything we're doing. So if you have a friend who might be interested in one of the tournaments that goes basically every day of the week now, make sure to let them know because some people aren't terminally online like the rest of us.
That is very true. I do tend to be terminally online with altered stuff, but yeah, I get it. Always good to let the people know what's going on.
All right, looks like we did kick off final amount 36 players. Are you seeing any matchups you already want to jump into?
I would love to jump into table 9. That would be
Ooh, okay.
Krekeb's Kaifo against Altered Ace's Teitu.
Yes.
Should be super competitive right away, but also Kaifo is really well known for bringing some super fun decks with really cool uniques, oftentimes that we don't see in other people's lists. So I'd be excited to check that out.
Yeah. Not to mention, Kaifu is just a wonderful person all around. She is tons of fun to play against. So good.
Totally agreed there.
Good first choice. And look at that. It's Sierra. Okay. This already begs the question. I have always for months said that I think Axiom is competitive. It's just
Yeah.
that people it takes a lot more consideration and thought, so it's kind of underrepresented right now. But in the last week, I swear we have seen like a two times increase in Sierra and Axiom. Why do you think that happened?
Well, partially we had the increase of Axiom with Haven Bravos Bastion coming back from that mid-season patch, albeit in a slightly different version this time around. But overall, I think people have been trying to pick up some interesting uniques for these decks. I mean, there have been players like Freeloader, of course, my teammate, who I mean, it's because of him that I always have said that I think Traced is still very good, for example. But then a couple other people were picking up on some similar ideas there. Puppet being one, Ethern as well. So some success with Traced at least, but Sierra has otherwise been one of the more popular Axiom heroes over the last while. It's just been a lot less popular than we used to see with like old Trace, for example. But this is immediately a super strong start for Kaifu. I would find it having this Ouroboros Lyra Bastion out so soon. This is really the linchpin of virtually or most of these Axiom decks at this point.
Yeah, the Lyra Bastion has been a really interesting inclusion, and when you see it at work, it's scary. Like every time I'm like, "Oh no, what am I gonna get up to?" And before it zooms off the screen, I am pretty sure I have seen this Repotter Otter before, or one that is very similar. This is a very scary unique as well. I think
Yeah,
maybe out a little too early, but it can come right back and do it again.
not only does it threaten to come right back and do it again, it is also a deck that can conceivably loop through their own deck and reshuffle their discard back in.
Yep.
This isn't like far fetched. This will happen very regularly when you're playing a deck completely built around the Ouroboros Lyra Bastion. And yeah, you're totally right. That unique, super strong. Notably, it does always put the brass bug into your other expedition, so you can't just win both expeditions off of it by chaining like support abilities like that of the Inari that we see here. But it's still incredibly strong, and I think it's going to give them a leg up for most of the days at least.
Yeah, and if you did not get a chance to read it when I was hovering over it, the main part of the text you need to pay attention to is when a card goes from your hand or deck to reserve, create a brass bug token in your other expedition, and there it goes. Gets yeeted immediately by Nevenka Teitu. Very good decision, probably.
Yeah, definitely. Sort of important to get that done. I think it's also important for the Nevenka here to stem the bleeding a little bit. It's a hero that very much does not want to fall behind on the tumult. It's one of the more aggressive leaning heroes in a lot of cases as well. Nevenka is, so I would assume that they're going to try to at least get back out and get a little bit more aggressive with it. And it definitely helps if they're able to remove that crazy threat of the otter. But yeah, still potentially a good amount of gas that can be found by the Sierra over the next couple turns. I don't know what else is going on in their list, if they're potentially playing something like Brassbug Hive, for example, but it's about time for something like that to either come out or otherwise start chaining into some other powerful cards, maybe some more uniques.
Yeah. And this Katagir Mage Dancer is also very nice. Not only does it gain a boost when you roll a die, it actually gains two. I think most often we see it only gains one. I don't know if I've seen two as often. Have you?
No, it's true. I don't see it quite as often. It's interesting. A lot of the mage dancers that have been played in this sort of configuration often have the ability to pick up cards in a lot of cases. Like there has been spell return in a lot of cases. Um, but yeah, this is a good number of boosts that you can get out of the Nevenka ability, especially. I wonder if they're playing any other die roll effects as well. I'm assuming there's some Ouroboros Tricksters, for example, in the list. And suddenly, you can go pretty big on stats out of seemingly nowhere.
Yeah, I took a look at the discard of Sierra, and the other two bastions are in there. So we won't see a double Lyra bastion yet. But as you mentioned, that Repotter Otter being in the discard early means we'll most likely just see it come back again. If you take a look at the deck numbers, Kaifu is at 19 and Tay2 is at 26. So
Hmm.
already a pretty good lead there. And from what I've seen in most Lyra decks currently, they are actually trying to do the opposite of what Sierra is doing, not letting things go to discard. And you can see the stark difference here. There is one card in discard for Tay2.
Yeah, you're right there. Currently, I mean that Tanuki coming down was a really important thing this turn as well, able to get rid of a frozen delivery right off the bat, which was definitely a help. And they're ahead on both cards and in on the tumult at the moment. Nevenka potentially threatens to win via small step giant leap. Not sure if they're playing it, but it's not exactly an uncommon inclusion. But at least for Kaifu's perspective, they have managed to find another unique that is pretty strong. It's just not going to do too much this turn outside of continuing to prevent this Tanuki from advancing on its own. But thanks to that lovely reserve support ability from the Category Mage Dancer to discount a spell, Off You Go does manage to take an expedition there. So that's super important. We're going to find out really quickly if they're already working with a small step.
Yeah, that is a very aggressive move, especially having the anchored Tanuki. You don't often see Tanuki anchored. And that moth larva is another unique that matches the when a card goes from your hand or deck to reserve, create a token. And then the reserve ability is if there are two or more exhausted cards in reserve, I gain 2 boosts. Otherwise, I gain 1 boost. Otherwise, has probably been my favorite inclusion, new aspect of uniques during Trial by Frost. It makes it feel like a lot better having
Yeah,
two options.
the most important line of text on this being the brass bug creation one. Yeah, I think we might be at a point in the game though where conceivably Tay2 could just fire off this off you go from reserve here and get rid of the moth larva outright. And I don't know if that would be beatable, but even better, slightly discounted from that is cloth cocoon to get rid of it. And yeah, now we'll see. Can 3 stats or potentially 4, thanks to the Navenka hero ability, can 4 stats on mountain be stopped? That is the question.
Yeah, we did see two perfect pulls in a row from that Lyra Bastion. The Gibble and the Chronicler. Well, I guess the Chronicler. I mean, yeah, it's still good. It doesn't. Oh, it does. Damn, there are just so many ways to cycle this dang thing. Um, yeah, and then this is where we stop, right? But we get the Salvager and then play the Salvager. Oh no, no. See, so many different options.
I
And
like this. You don't want to play out anything, any character, especially more expensive, until you threaten to either potentially get to another unique, or at least are able to dodge this off you go. So I like the line as it was gone for there. That does give a potential chance to stop the bleeding, but I don't know. This Mage Dancer unique coming out. Oh, also returns a off you go now. That is one of those spell return uniques I was mentioning earlier. Oof, that's really strong, and I don't know if that's going to be beatable here for Kaifu.
yeah, that was perfect. Perfect amount of mana, perfect timing. We did see another Repotter Otter come out with that Brass Bug ability. It is not the same one. This one costs 2 from reserve instead of 3. And there is the Off You Go. It's going to be very hard to block two sides here. Or, oh yeah. Let's see. Hypothetically, there's something that works here, but it's I can't think of it.
Yeah, the situation here is one where if Navenka rolls correctly, which they do not, notably, they were
Ooh.
going to be in a position where they were likely unbeatable here. But as such, this Lyra Chronicler might be able to go off, or thanks to that resupply ability, and get more brass bugs to block out that Tanuki. That was a low roll, and they needed to hit anything that gives stats.
Yeah, that is very unfortunate. That's going to be another brass bug, and there is Kaifu lasting yet another day.
Wow, and just like that, we've gone from wow, close game, but going completely in Tay2's way there towards the end to, oh, maybe they could be just dead, honestly. The level of these uniques is pretty sweet. I'm very sure that over this next turn, we'll be well into the second loop through the deck, with those cards in the discard being reshuffled back in. So, if Kaifu's able to find one of their uniques again, for example, and start chaining more characters, they could be potentially looking at a double advance or bringing it over to the tiebreaker arena.
Yeah, that is wild. This is a key moment to crack open a cold one.
Absolutely.
What are you drinking today?
I'm drinking sparkling water. I had some caffeine earlier, but for today, I'm like, we're just gonna have a Tay2 cast. Should be good. I have a feeling that Kohlrabi's being accosted by his dogs at the moment, but all right, we have from Kaifu and Ada Lovelace leading things off at least on a pretty good expedition for it, actually, notably blocking pretty well with the 3 stats in Mountain on that companion side. And yeah, showing us a couple more cards in their reserve at the moment, but honestly, not super good yet. But there is one of those uniques. Moth Larva coming down. Oh, and it's excellent. It is the one that will give the brass bugs into the hero expedition, meaning that they are threatening to contest very handily, even on that hero side.
Yeah, that was my dog being excited that mom was coming home. So apologies for that.
No worries.
I also cracked open a juvie for tonight, peachy mango puff. So that's what we're drinking, and just in time for if I had to guess, I'm thinking this goes the way of Kaifu. There's just going to be so many options, and this thing's going to start creating brass bugs. I don't know if there's a way that Tay2 can stop it.
Yeah, well, they do have this removal here, which is
Yeah.
going to mean that at least it's going to cost an additional 2 mana to redeploy this Moth Larva now, meaning that it might be a little challenging to put out enough stats, depending on what the last cards here for Tay2 are. But I think at least we're going to be going to a tiebreaker.
Yeah, we'll see here. That frozen delivery is really scary when I see this type of Sierra. Um, you could even go Axiom Salvager and maybe start a pretty wild loop. But I mean, we thought that Tay2 had it before, and we had a surprise. So maybe we'll see some other surprises here.
Yeah, there's definitely, I mean, a couple things that could still come down. There are characters that could be potential character removal at this point. That is a pretty decent example, actually. In this case, it should at least get them over to the tiebreaker arena. Um, but yeah, it's going to be a painful position, and it's just very likely as well that Kaifu finds their way to yet another iteration of one of their uniques in the tiebreaker arena.
Yeah, I keep telling people that. Oh, wow! You get to choose
Or
which one you
two.
want.
Yep.
Yeah, I keep telling people Sierra is freaking scary, and
Very much so.
here it is. Shout out to everyone in the chat. Thank you for watching. Simon made a good point earlier that Axiom uses all of the other factions' bastions way more than their own.
Yeah, very true. It's also worth noting here, actually, that was sort of a bad hit off of the Axiom Salvager. You don't want to hit multiple of your uniques there because you are forced to discard at least one of them. And notably, Tay2 does have the ability to repeatedly rebuy this off you go. That's looking to be actually a pretty significant threat at the moment. If this Repotter Auto just gets played out, I mean, yeah, they're going to get a brass bug off of it, but a character from Nevenka could actually start to overpower things.
Yeah, I think we did see a Kellen burst in Sierra's list, didn't we? Or did I?
Yeah, we did. I remember seeing one as well.
Yeah, so Sierra being first, maybe we see something get rid of this Mage Dancer, which would
Yeah,
halt that. But
but
Lyra
then that
has,
also makes you susceptible to a potential sabotage effect as well. So it's sort of a
yeah,
damned if you do, damned if you don't situation.
yeah, there is only one Tanuki and one Cloth Cocoon in the discard for Tay2. This, like I said, this is literally like polar opposites going against each other. Nevenka has the I don't want to put any cards in discard. I'm going to cycle, keep picking things back up, always have options. And then Sierra is I'm just going to shuffle through everything until I get what I want and toss the rest.
That's true. And interestingly, this spot being so difficult for Nevenka here is specifically why earlier in the game I was saying that the Nevenka really needed to put the pedal to the metal in terms of actually taking some expedition progressions, because they did get ahead on the tumult, but not as much as you might expect, considering that the other player deployed a 3-mana permanent in the Ouroboros and a 4-mana permanent in the Axiom Reprocessor. Um, you really need to be taking those aggressive advantages while you can get them, especially because once this engine turns on, it is so hard to beat. Um, but yeah, at least they have some tools at the current moment where they can actually conceivably beat it. It's just going to be pretty darn tough.
The Mage Dancer is allowed to get anchored and roll a die. We're going to see there's some thought here. Yeah, it's the off you go for sure.
Yep, needs to get rid of this unique right away. Get the potential infinite brass bugs essentially off of the table, and then see if they can potentially deal with even just the threat of Kaifa just playing out these two Inaris from reserve even. And at this point, I think I actually really like that line. Just play out the Inaris, say you need either some character that can go so massively over the top, which is very unlikely, or multiple removal while they only have one card left in hand. I like it, but it still could be a situation where if there is some sort of die roll effect, like what's that card? All in
Yeah,
could
all
potentially
in
roll a
trickster.
6 and then pick up your off you go, and then off you go one of these Inaris. And I think that would actually potentially win the game.
Yeah, I don't know how many people play all in these days,
Yes,
though. Is the unfortunate part.
not common. Not saying it's a likely play. I just mean there are theoretical outs here.
Yeah, we don't have too much to go off of to know what Tay2. There's the GG spoken in chat. Wonder if we'll get to see. Well, I mean, something could still happen. Drawing that card. I mean, not a winning thing, but we can maybe see what else is in the deck.
Honestly, this was really well played by both players, honestly, but I'm really impressed by Kaifu. Not only the deck, which seemed to operate super well, but there was a lot of poise in their play. I think they knew very early on what they needed despite the pressure that they were facing, and then they just executed it in the last couple turns just really, really cleanly, gave themselves all the outs they needed, and they found the cards when they needed them.
Yeah, that was a beautiful first game, a great choice by the professional Keelan guy. There's only one game left. Looks like Kaiki on Aphanis versus Diamond Black. I do not believe I have seen that name before. Love seeing new people. And there is a Fire Rabbit with 5 boosts. somehow. So
Yeah,
that's
that is
interesting.
that is a very big rabbit, and notably, it doesn't even have fleeting. I mean, it did get helping handed, I believe, here, which is why it's so large. I think it was played out from reserve as well, getting a couple more boosts from these double havens that are currently in play. And notably, the Basira is significantly ahead on the Tumult. However, they're also very much running out of time. Just 2 minutes here, and I think they'll get dropped.
Yeah, the game is not progressed enough either for us to think it could end right here. So when the top opponent has about 11 minutes left and the other person has negative 40, yeah, it's getting really close. One way that I like to tell is how long ago the game started. 22 minutes ago, technically. Did it just end while I was talking? No, it didn't.
Nope, not
Um,
yet.
so 22. I mean, I feel like we have somewhat of an understanding of how the end of time rules work, but not perfectly.
Yeah. Unfortunately for the Basira here, they did just lose a double progression to the Iphanis, despite having that Fire Rabbit in play. With 4 mana, they weren't able to go over that Moth that was on the hero side, which is definitely a rough spot actually now, working at on even space on the Tumult, where the Iphanis already has a Nylum Withered Tree out. Yeah, looking honestly pretty good for Iphanis now.
Yeah, I'll be very interested to see if this game even has a resolution that isn't by time. T so if it was created 22 minutes ago, we're at 32 minutes somewhat. If you add the 10 from Kaiki, I feel like 35 is the absolute max. So really, I feel like Kaiki having so much time on their clock is what's saving Diamond Black right now.
Yeah, notably, Kaiki is one of probably the most well-known Nylum Withered Tree maining Iphanis at the moment. They're always playing a configuration with the Nylum. They love this card, at least it very much seems so. But there are a couple weaknesses to it, and they do. I think we saw that from the turn before, where the tumult was at. You often just have to concede some early expeditions, especially to a super aggressive deck like Basira, and it actually costs them here with the double advance being found, so thanks to that intimidation as removal spell there. And yeah, sometimes that is one of the potential weaknesses of the Nylum. It's powerful if you get an engine going, and especially if you find multiple copies of it. But yeah, you have to concede a lot sometimes for it.
Yeah, that is not quite how I imagined it going. And if you were listening to my math earlier and just having question marks above your head, trust me, makes sense. Just makes sense, bro. I promise. And that should be the end of round one.
It
Oh,
was indeed.
all right. Where can we go? What is Rune Folk playing today? Is it something I should be worried about?
I'm scared, and yes.
Let's see. Let's see what the hero is. And I reserve the right to back out. Okay, so I see on table 6 Hyper K and Freeloader. This should be a very
Oh,
interesting game.
absolutely. This should be pretty fun. Pretty sure I know exactly what freeloader's on. Hyper K, yep, is indeed on his classic Tasia Anora. So that is, pretty standard, I guess. But yeah, Arjun and Spike. Not every day that you see that at this point. And yeah, starting out with a harvest on the first turn, showing us some interesting cards: Frozen Delivery and Snoozer Shroom, both from the most recent set. Also, yeah, you don't see a configuration like this every day, but looks to me like Festival.
Yeah. I don't know which is worse, Waru or Festival. Um, I mean, Festival in some cases does, take some work. So I guess you got to give credit there. But
Excellent start for Hyper K. Does have sort of the optimal opener against Arjun, having both a anchored character that sticks around, keeps stats, will give additional card advantage via this resupply from at noon, and it was a double advance thanks to that Ogun as well, meaning that they are trying to close the game out quickly, and that start definitely helps them do so. At the same time, they're also looking for removal for potential festivals, and the fact that Spindle Harvesters digs for answers, very helpful.
Yes, I am gonna look something up here. I believe Hyper usually runs. Let's see. Okay, I thought it was a mana reaping, but it seems most recent deck has one Beauty Sleep and three Lost in the Woods.
And yeah, they
Now,
are on that today as well.
okay, so traditionally, three Lost in the Woods is it's what I would run, and it's totally fine. Against Festival, though, it could be really, really scary because you have only three chances to get rid of things that could trigger the festival.
I wonder how familiar Hyper K is with this matchup here, given the play that we saw this turn. They resupplied a Spindle Muna Bastion, which can be a very strong play in general for the Tasia deck, especially when they're working with cards that let them sort of set up these anchor chains and do important things over time. Problem being, they didn't actually progress on the companion side that turn in order to deploy that Spindle, and chances are, I have a feeling there's next to zero removal playing for Freeloader in his deck. With that Lyra Festival being played on turn 2, there's actually a really solid chance that the game ends this turn. It's not uncommon.
Yeah, this just looks like a very classic sequence from Tasia that didn't really take into consideration anything else. Maybe there is one of those Lost in the Woods, but let's see here. So we got the Shroom to sleep. That was not a very good resupply from the Floral Tent if I'm looking for um, fleeting.
Yeah, that floral tent is something that you do want to see here if you are Hyper K on the Tasia. That means it is very unlikely that there will be a win coming out this turn from Freeloader on the Arjun. I say that because, with a Lyra Festival strategy, you need all three conditions on three separate characters, one fleeting, one anchored, one asleep, in order to win the game at dusk. And you need that Lyra Festival in play. Snoozer Shroom, 2 mana from reserve, would be a fleeting character. Then it would be as simple as playing out a Kodama, for example, or another character that gains fleeting from hand for 2 mana. And then 1 mana Spindle Harvesters, that would be anchored and win the game then on the spot. So immediately seeing that Floral Tent comes out means that that line is no longer a thing unless there's, for example, unique that would gain, say, sleep for 1 mana, which is pretty hard to find in a lot of cases.
I mean, there is one of the Spindle Harvesters, but uh oh, just one character short if I'm looking at it correctly here.
Yeah, they just don't. Freeloader won't have the mana to try to go for the win this turn. But what they can do here is at least set up one of these characters with fleeting for the next turn at least. And meanwhile, they're also trying to potentially stall on the tumult, which is a potential threat here, actually. Like Hyper K will have to commit more to that companion side now.
Yeah, this is a very interesting move. Playing the Snoozer Shroom with Arjun's ability, it'll, like you said, lock down there, be fleeting, and there is a Spindle Harvesters here that can gain anchored, or this unique can gain anchored. And if you control three or more characters, up to one target character gains a sleep. So that is right there. And if you don't know, there is no sabotage in Muna, and the hyper meta Muna decks do not run any exhaust whatsoever either. And
Hmm.
Hyper has no way to stop this currently unless we see a Lost in the Woods come out to get rid of Festival.
It's also entirely possible here that Freeloader could win through one removal spell in the Lost in the Woods. With the cards we see here, for just a total of 2 mana, there would then be 3 characters in play with all of the requisite conditions. So if a Lost in the Woods did come out and go after Festival, Freeloader would still have 4 mana, which could be potentially another Festival from hand, which is actually particularly threatening in this sort of scenario. And it is very likely that Freeloader will only have to make that decision after seeing what the Tasia does. But no, he ends up choosing to play out the Sneezer Shroom from hand. This is a conservative line. I like it in the sense that it at least it's going to force out removal no matter what. And it will have to go on to, actually, no, it could go various places even. But yeah, it needs to be right now. This remaining 3 mana for Hypercase needs to go into removal, get rid of something, and prevent this win. And no, he does not have it.
Yeah, that is very interesting. And there, it just seems like Hyper was continuing to play classic Tasia and maybe never pulled Lost in the Woods. I am not sure if there's a way that Beauty Sleep could have been used. I don't think so, because there were just too many options for Freeloader. Yeah, that was a festival.
That was a festival. Not quite the day 3 festival, but pretty darn close there actually.
All right. Someone did earlier want me to go back to Waru. So let's see what Runefolk is doing. That is table 3. I say someone, but I know who it is. John, you use your name everywhere. I don't know if you want to be called your name, but let's see here. So yeah, this looks gross already based on what's in reserve. But the Sierra does have a pretty good lead. Unfortunate thing is this Isatok and probably everything else that Runefolk has in the deck is going to just start to shut that down repeatedly. You know this deck more than I do, and you're the genius at play here. What do you think the chances are that Sierra is held hostage for a little while longer?
Well, one, Cole, I would say you are absolutely a genius as well in your own way, regardless of whether you're a little bit less familiar with whatever this pile is here from Runefolk. This is a very slow deck, if it is the Waru version of his that I'm familiar with, at least. Oftentimes, what it's going to be looking to do is set up an Isatok not only on one side of the board, but both sides to prevent all expeditions from moving forward. So even a game looking as completely one-sided as this one currently does can actually start to go the other way pretty darn quickly. So yeah, Sierra is about to be adjacent here, but suddenly Runefolk is definitely going to have a chance to set up something approaching a hard lock even. It sounds ridiculous, but definitely totally possible. It's just that Runefolk will likely need another Isatok here in order to make that happen.
Yeah, let's see what we have. We don't have another Isatok in discard, so it's very likely. Also good to note, this is a slightly different Sierra. This is a Brass Bug, Hive, Withering Tree Sierra. It is still very possible they also have the Lyra Bastion, but we do not see it anywhere currently.
Yeah, starting off the turn here with a rallying call is definitely one of these new lines that's very popular for Ortis heroes in general. We see it often in Sigismar, less so in Waru, mostly because we rarely ever see Waru at this point. But it's a nice way of saying, yeah, I'm going to wait until the last possible moment to make my decisions here. And really nicely, this Icebound Lake means that if there is another potential Isatok, for example, it is likely to lock down both expeditions and keep this first Isatok around. That could be really, really good. But no, this machine in the ice unique does eat it. Luckily for Bukox, because yeah, it was indeed the second Isatok here.
Yeah, it was moving around, so I haven't been able to hover it too much. It has a bunch of text. We'll skip the other thing. It's just the machine in the ice. But from reserve, if you control 2 or more landmarks, you may discard target permanent. That is what we saw right there. Very good in the Sierra deck. No, it's going away. And then when a robot joins your expeditions, you may discard a card from your reserve. If you do, target character other than me gains 1 boost. This would be pretty interesting with some of those other Sierra uniques we've seen. But not. You're mainly doing it for destroying permanents and things like that, I would assume.
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of cool, but I think probably the main use of this is occasionally getting an extra boost or two from it. Otherwise, hitting a permanent can be definitely a really useful thing in a format where we are used to seeing cards like the Monolith. We're used to seeing cards like Grand Endeavor. Heck, we're even seeing Baba Zizbas now and other cards like that. Haven and a lot of other decks. So yeah, a bit of permanent destruction as a unique is definitely useful. But yeah, now actually things are looking a little bit challenging for Runefolk. He might actually need a very specific combination of cards in order to actually lock down both expeditions again. Notably, he did lose that Isatok, that first Isatok at least, the last turn, as that permanent destruction did get the Icebound Lake just in the nick of time before the Isatok could get slept again. So yeah, potential outs here for Sierra, actually.
Oh, the hooked. Wait, what? Can you not do it on the? Oh, I guess doing it on the Isatok would be the opposite of what you want. But Celebration Day, yeah, that is annoying. That's one of my least favorite cards. As for Cheez-Its, I hate to break your heart, but I think they are low tier indeed. They are too chalky and artificial and just not very good.
The ones that I remember having had, I would agree, upper mid. I like Freeloader's point there. But
they
yeah,
make they
Celebration
make
Day was a good card to lock down the expeditions that past turn. Hooked is a funny one playing against Isatok that can complicate things in a pretty funny way. But yeah, Celebration Day, definitely an interesting choice. It's the sort of card that we've typically only seen out of Akesha until now. But yeah, some new life in the Ortis version of it here for Runefolk's Waru.
Yeah, I just my brain jumped 2 steps ahead and I was just like, "Oh man, a hooked on an Isatok would be so cool to finish out a game." And then I realized that the Sierra was already stacked on the opposite side of where the Isatok was locking down. So, yeah, this I mean, Runefolk still seems like he knows he has a way to keep this going. So, we'll see. We'll see if he can keep doing it. Also, mentioning he has more time on his clock. So,
That's true, but I am a little worried here. I- It's likely gonna need to be yet another Isatok, but the problem with that line is now that this hooked that is chilling here in reserve does threaten to win the game by putting both Isatoks on the same side if it was a follow-up Isatok. Um, as such, this mechanical training as well, going crazy in terms of just the stats that we already see on the board. And yeah, it does end up being here the case that this hooked is going to take down the game.
look at that. That's what I wanted. I wanted the hooked on the Isatok.
And look, all of that work for what? Runefolk is exactly where he started, at the initial place with his hero and companion. Nothing done, nothing achieved, except there were some pretty cool cards played that we don't often see. The difference, though, between this sort of game state as we see it and the one where Runefolk can no longer lose the game in any circumstance, it's like knife's edge. This game could so easily have gone that way. It's just a little bit deceiving how it actually looks at that last stage there.
So, is Waru on the list of heroes that Runefolk still needs a listing on 39 cards.
I don't know if Runefolk is also competing with Freeloader and I for that.
Mm,
If he is, I don't think he's close to us at the moment, at least. I think in general he prioritizes. I mean, his pair of hostage decks for sure, but otherwise a bit of Basira, a bit of Afanas.
yeah, if he
But I could be
wasn't,
wrong. Maybe he has a bunch of results.
yeah, if he wasn't such a nice guy and handsome, I'd hate him. So I jumped down to 12. Great, it's Fen
Perfect.
versus Kesha, but we see good old Rhubarb. Um, I think this player before they had the KRA was around, right?
Honestly,
Rhubarb.
I can't recall. I can't recall the name without the KRA at least from Team Krakeb, but regardless, they're playing a pretty interesting Fen configuration using some winter outfits here, and even a Lyra Thespian unique, which is pretty interesting. But they're facing off against Winter Nova Katagir Akesha, who has actually found their Katagir and gotten to play cards off of it, which is very good for them.
Yeah, turns out I am so great at picking to watch things I hate. But but there is a Winter Nova, which at least is something new in the Katagir Akesha. And for the name Rhubarb, I think maybe I was thinking of Freze's rhubarb, strawberry rhubarb.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
so I love the rhubarb representation here in Altered.
Notably, Team Krakeb, one of the dominant teams in this event. Actually, I think they have the highest number of players of theirs who are currently playing it, with three members, which is pretty cool. They're from Quebec, and their logo is both based on the fleur de lis, but also the kraken from the altered villain. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, I think it's going to be a little bit tough for them to find their way through this Katagir Izmir Bastion if they don't manage to find like a cloth cocoon to start out for this next day.
Yeah, in the discard from Akesha, we see Celebration Day, one other Katagir, and Isatok. So there's still a couple Isatoks left, maybe another Katagir if this one gets taken out. The Fen, however, is about to cycle the deck. Akesha is just 13 cards behind or so.
Yeah, notably, at least it looks like this configuration of the Akesha might not be entirely the full stall. We do see at least one copy of Celebration Day that is in their discard at the moment, meaning that they do have that potential possibility of just sitting there and saying nothing's going to happen. But otherwise, Winter Nova, we have seen a couple Akesha builds that are a bit more focused on actually just doing things actively instead of just completely stalling out the game. But it does look like stalling's the plan here. Sakurabru coming out to start off this day for the Akesha, saying, I do not want to lose today no matter what else happens.
Oh, what's your guess on what mana we'll get up to on this game?
Let's see. We have 5 minutes 40 seconds left for Rhubarb, 7 minutes for Magic. Hmm, let's call it 2020.
Okay, I'm gonna go 17.
Yeah, I think you're closer to it than me. Believe it or not, these Akesha decks can actually win the game reasonably quickly when they do start to turn the corner. Um, you can actually occasionally even play out Small Step Giant Leap like 4 times in one day. Katagir is pretty funny like that, given that it will have your spells lose fleeting when they're played from hand, meaning that, for example, with a couple Katagirs out, you can just start spamming Small Steps. So that does threaten to close out the game pretty quickly. But otherwise, yeah, it could also just be that copies of some of these other cards that we're seeing from them. One of the things that's so weird about playing into an Akesha deck like this is you don't know if your opponent is actually going to use that celebration day, meaning you have to keep contesting on the board because otherwise there are random small characters from Akesha that can take progressions. Alice, Baba Yaga, other things, and there's that Winter Nova that we saw as well that can potentially put some stats on the board, meaning that Fen has to keep contesting and spending resources, and at the end of the day, Akesha can just say, "Nope, I play Celebration Day." Nothing happens.
Yeah, and what we see saved after clearing the reserve there is Winter Nova and Celebration Day. So very, very fun times in the reserve here for Akesha. And then Fen's just being Fen over here. Pretty classic Lyra Thespian, unique, roll a die and resupply or draw a card. You do have to have 3 or more base statistics of 0, but you can also, they just straight up rip the Celebration Day off the bat.
So, Cole, I understand you are a massive fan of this sort of Akesha deck, and you've previously requested that players play specifically this into you because of how much you enjoy the matchup, right? What is your favorite part of this Akesha deck? What do you think is so cool about it?
I think it was still during set 1 when people found out this deck existed. Being in set 1, it means there was a little less to answer this deck with, and yeah, I just don't understand what happened to a person in their life where they have to say, I want nobody to have fun during this game, and I want to hypothetically, metaphorically, glue the opponent to the chair until I let them leave. So, yeah, it's just, I don't know. I'm a very nice person as long as other people are nice. And I feel like this is one of the meanest possible decks you can play.
I think it's not that nobody's having fun, it's that this player tends to believe that fun might be a zero-sum game here, so they've just taken the fun that Fen could be having and added it to their collection. I think that's sort of the mainstay of the hostage strategy in general, whether that's Runefolk's Waru, for example, whether that's Kategir or Kesha. But yeah, I assure you, this Akesha is having fun right now. But that could change, especially if this Kategir Izmir Bastion does leave play, which it does now thanks to a Cloth Cocoon.
Yeah. But what does it say about a person if they are having fun by just ruining someone else's day? I think if you take a second to really, really think about it, um, it might, give you some inner monologues. And for those that say you can just concede, you can, but also never surrender. I have never conceded a game, and I don't know. It's not even really a pride thing or anything. I just don't really concede unless I have to leave and go poop or something.
That's fair. I tend to take that approach with tournaments whenever I can, but with concessions in general, once I know that I can't win, I concede the game. No point. it's
Yeah.
it's just at the point at which I don't have, I see the stats on the board. I don't have the cards in hand. That's it.
Yeah, I probably should concede more often, but I always have this feeling that maybe there's something else that I can learn from the game, just seeing it out to the end. And during set 1, I played a 55-minute Akesha game where I swear the last 25 minutes I was one move away, and I still lost the game. I did not end up having enough. Ooh, a small step out of the fen right now. That is very interesting to see.
That's pretty cool. That does actually threaten to start doing things, interestingly enough, especially, if these players keep going through their decks. But notably, an actual consideration and concern here for the Fen player is the fact that so far their Akesha opponent has been playing a little bit faster than them. Something that we do sometimes see with these hostage decks is that they don't actually have to win the game in tournaments as long as they play faster than their opponent, because eventually their opponent will time out. Some people call that sort of a bug of the system. I call it a feature. I think Runefolk calls it a feature. Is pretty cool if you're playing nice and quickly with this hostage strategy. Sometimes you don't have to actually do anything to win.
Yeah, that is interesting. If you have not played a tournament in person or even really just any organized play, in person it is a lot different, where it's more strict in a few ways. So you have a round time, which is usually 30 minutes for a best of one, maybe 45, 50 for a best of three. And once that round time buzzer goes off, you have to finish the current afternoon you are in, and then you get one more day. And if there is not a clear winner after that one more day, you go into arena rules. And then if no one wins the arena, it's a tie. That's the most common end of round procedures for Altered. So it'd be very interesting to see how this played out in person if you tried to do this, because if that were to happen now and the Akesha didn't move and didn't let Fen move, Fen would actually win on that, end of round, extra round, because Fen has moved further than Akesha.
Funny how these things work a little differently with the online play. I'm honestly a big fan in general of the chess clock system, but I do admit I do think it's pretty funny that you can essentially force your opponent to lose by playing a little faster while taking them hostage. But yeah, regardless, I'm a little bit worried for the Akesha here actually now with no Katagir in play, especially if they do play another one out and it does potentially meet immediate removal. They could be in a world of trouble. Um, Otherwise, if they have more copies of Celebration Day or other ways to stall, they're still hanging out, they're still fine. But the game could end quickly if they just haven't drawn what they've needed here. And they're just down to 3 cards in hand, which is a little bit alarming.
Yeah. The only other saving grace currently is they are 3 cards away from cycling their deck. If they can make it to that, maybe they get lucky. I do not see any conjuring anywhere, just magical training.
Who knows? Maybe they all found their way into mana.
But yeah, anything's possible.
Alterados Renegados says in the chat that they have their first IRL event this weekend. What are you playing? What are you going to be bringing to your first IRL event?
I have my first Tumult event on Saturday as well, so I still need to put together my physical deck because I play 80% of the time on BGA.
I understand that. I have a similar problem actually.
Yeah.
I don't have many of my own cards even.
So this is that same Thespian as Fen has cycled their deck. The Winter Nova, the choice here was to exhaust the 2 Anansis and then create the moths. And then I missed what the other one was. Did you see it?
I did not see it actually.
Let's see if the invokes Manamoth, exhausts Anansi, invoke. I might have missed it. Double exhaust. I thought this says exhaust up to 2 cards in reserve. Well,
The Akesha just did not find what they needed there in those last couple draws, ran out of gas, and it was just enough for Rhubarb to close out the game. So, wow.
womp womp. Poor
Barely
Akesha.
barely navigating their way through a sort of scary hostage setup.
The sacrifice. Okay, cool. That's what I thought the third choice might have been. Yeah, Winter Nova, since it's a card you don't see very often, says you choose 3. So they chose exhaust up to 2 cards in reserve, create 2 mana moths, and then thank you, chat, for the assist. Target player sacrifices a character. But it was not enough. And that was round 2. Round 3 is quickly off. We go here. Where are you feeling like going today?
Maybe table 6, Helix 90 against Symbiosis.
I do love the name Symbiosis. What do we got here?
I do remember Symbiosis having played
Invisible.
some Lindaway before. However, they're bringing today
Ooh,
at Sadi and Surge playing against Helix 90s and Nevenka. This should be fun.
nice. Let me pull up the bracket on the other monitor. So while we can talk, let's see how Symbiosis currently is 1-1 with this Saudi. They lost first round, and then they won second round. I'm trying to see. Yeah, they won second round. So very, very interesting here. We have a good representation of heroes that you'll be seeing on stream today. I don't remember what the name is off the top of my head, but shout out to the person that keeps leaving timestamps of the matchups in the comments.
Absolute
Uh,
legend. Yep.
yep, appreciate you. That is a very useful thing for a lot of people. So thank you, thank you.
Yeah, I'm interested in this Atsadi deck actually. I myself am going to need to pick up an Atsadi record on 39 cards at some point. So, yeah, if this goes anywhere, I'm going to be very much happy to steal this list.
How long do you think it's going to take you two to finish all of the heroes?
I think if it depends if I'm commentating as much as I typically am,
Yeah.
because that does seem to be my main barrier to entry is being like playing one tournament per week or so. Um, if otherwise, my average rate is I think 4 to 5 results per month on 39 cards, so it would probably take 2 months. And I should have all of
So
them.
it's so with time changes, time zones being different, probably the weather getting a little nicer, increase in amount of tournament options. We have seen player base in the more NA centric times lower a little bit. So it is technically a little easier in some ways to get a top 16. I think next Tuesday for Ace, since we're doing a special wildcard event and doing a special time, should have more than the Sunday event usually does.
Mhm.
So, what hero are you bringing on Tuesday to hopefully get a top 16 out of the way?
Well, I'll tell you, it's not Fen because I got that one out of the way earlier today. So I'll be figuring that out over the next little bit. That's a good question.
Nice.
But I still have a
Yeah.
couple of very competitive heroes, at least that I haven't had records on yet. So, there's some good options. Speaking of which, we haven't actually seen any Sigismar today thus far in these 3 rounds, which I'm thrilled about. But yeah, currently, Sadi falling actually
Ooh.
potentially a little bit behind with a 1 roll there. That is actually good for the Martingale. That will let them outstat the Fire Rabbit. But just being 1 expedition behind currently on the Tumult, not too bad when you're this far ahead in mana. But Atsadi is also out of cards for the moment. They need to find something large to spend their mana on now to start picking up the cards with their hero ability.
Yeah, I'm wondering if we're going to. It's a little late in the game to see an Amarok combo into anything else. Because even if we see it, what the lowered cost is 3, if there's nothing else. So you'd have 4. I wonder though if we're gonna see the counters combo. Um, Saudi, there's no reason that you couldn't get 2 counters in 1 turn, right? Yeah.
No, no, if you have enough mana, you can do it. It's just you need to have enough mana.
We're just gonna go straight to to 7 there with a unique Kaibara. It is gigantic. It has tough 1, and at dusk, up to 1 target character gains fleeting.
Yeah, sort of excellent this turn, actually. Just really nice being able to draw a card off of that, contesting both expeditions. Chances are, no matter what, they're probably going to get 1 expedition, probably get outstatted on the other, but You know, it's also entirely possible with Navenka having as few mana as they currently do, they might actually struggle to do so. For example, if they aren't able to roll a 4 plus on the Cerberus Trickster, there's a chance it's not enough.
Let's see what they get.
Yeah,
No,
so that's a 3 still, but likely with this Navenka hero ability, it might be able to at least block a progression.
man,
Okay,
those
they
those
will
low
they will
rolls.
advance off of that. That's good. No, it's fine. Yeah, you can low roll as long as you have Martingale in play. So that does end up actually working out for Navenka, but barely. And even then, I don't think this is really where you want to be in the game still. You still needing 4 progressions for Navenka. You're just 1 ahead then of the Atsadi. And yeah, Atsadi is in the zone where they're just going to start repeatedly playing Kaibaras, for example.
Yeah, and this Mage Dancer is going to get fleeting, and there are all the characters that we've seen for Fen or Navenka toast. Martingale does save the day, but I hate seeing so many ones rolled. It just seems scary for the future.
Yeah,
So
this Kybara is actually sort of perfect into this matchup with that giving a character fleeting ability. Like sometimes you don't think like something like that will actually be relevant when you're just trying to play like a discount Sky Whale, right? Like the point of this card typically is just to come down, be gigantic, have tough, so it's a little harder to remove. Just a good card, right? But turns out here actually costing your opponent resources when you're starting to grind your way up in resources with Itsadi is super big deal. And he's, I mean, already 2 mana ahead of the Navenka. Yeah, I'm just loving the Itsadi spot here.
yeah, the Kaibara can come out again, get another card draw, and then what another one after that that costs 8. Freeloader also stated that it'll only take 2.5 weeks to finish the heroes. I will love to see it. I'm gonna set a calendar reminder. But if not, maybe the next set will make some of those heroes a little easier for you guys to get a listing on. The new set is now less than 2 months away, and PAX East is in like exactly a month. It's very likely we'll start seeing some news for the next set at PAX East.
You know, it is cool here seeing a Kybura get outstatted by double Cernunos coming down. But still, there's going to be so much pressure on Navenka here. Again, one of these Cernunos is going to get fleeting thanks to that effect from the Kaibara, which is nice, meaning that if there is, for example, another unique Kaibara from the Itsadi in their hand or another card they could access, it's going to be really hard to outstat it.
Not to mention the card advantage for Atsadi is now double, while also having more mana still. They can mana and still have technically more than double on the card advantage. Looks like they're considering that very thing right now.
Yeah, we're also at the range where now that Atsadi will have access to 9 mana, it is potentially Eat Me Energy Bars plus Sakurabru territory. For those of you who aren't familiar with that little combo of cards, playing a Eat Me Energy Bars, which would give your character Gigantic, and then a Sakurabru on top of it, means that it would set your opponent back 1 expedition on both expeditions for a total of 2. And that is oftentimes one of the things that these Saudi decks will do to break parity and go from trading 1 for 1 to just setting them back an entire double advance turn. But it doesn't look to be the case this turn, at least. Haven Sarengar coming out from Atsadi. Yeah, turns out Atsadi, despite being such a ramp-focused hero, still just plays some good commons that are cheap, which I love. But yeah, Navenka primarily just focusing on this hero expedition at the moment.
Sarengar can also draw a card. Ooh, interesting. Do not see a Dorothy Gale as often. It makes sense for the start of a Saudi, but maybe it came just a little too late. We skipped right over 5 into 6, and now we're at 7. And if you didn't know, 7, 8, 9.
That is true. 7 did eat 9. And yeah, Dorothy is actually a pretty interesting choice in general for these decks. It's funny seeing rare slots go into a card like that when we virtually never see the original Dorothy Gale get played at the moment. But it is actually one of these things that somehow it works pretty well for the deck that's so ramp focused, and also sometimes it can be the initial character to gain that first card draw off of the Itzadi hero ability and start doing things. So actually, ends up being pretty decent here as well, getting rid of Cernunnos and further taxing the already very low resources for Nevenka.
I know a lot of people love Atsadi and wish there was more support for him, and he's a very cool dude. But it just does not feel fun to me. I don't know. I think one of the main reasons people are drawn to him is because of the challenge. It's very off meta, but I'd rather just play Arak, to be honest. I don't know. Maybe playing big things and trying to play big things is what Saudi players love.
Exactly. I'm just sitting
Um,
here thinking, like, this looks hilarious. I want to be doing this. This is cool.
yeah, just the hero ability does because in my mind you could do this in basically any other hero because only drawing one card per turn if you know play a character that big, you can do that in any hero. So if you love playing Saudi, I'd love to hear your reasoning behind it. And be honest, is it because he is the underdog? Is it because you just want to play big things? Or is it because he's a total one-armed badass?
So, Cole, we see like really cool uniques coming out from decks like Itzade, where oftentimes we just don't see uniques that are high cost characters. Where we typically are used to seeing very impactful low cost characters, but we see like Kybara, for example, as a unique here. How do you feel about the idea of using like removal sort of uniques, like potential like Dorothy Gales or whatever with removal effects? Or how would that like what would be your opinion? What would you rather be playing, like Kybra, something big as a unique, or maybe something more like middle of the road, a bit more flexible?
Yeah, I feel like I just don't even know. There was a period of time where I was playing Hydras. Hydras are very high cost. But I think Muna, especially uniques that are good, are hard to come by compared to some other factions like Ortis.
Mhm.
Um, and so any unique Hydra I've seen or I've pulled is just not at all worth playing. I don't know. I mean I tried out Saudi once and I just didn't, or once or twice. It just did not feel fun to me. I don't know. The small counters, hard to make them go up higher was just not entertaining. So it would depend on who I'm playing, what the matchups were. I feel like permanent removal is not as strong as it was in set one. But what do I know?
Fair enough. Maybe we can jump into table 14.
Let's see here. All right. Tasty Bacon, first time playing in AWOL, playing Tasia. Oh man, is this
We have
Tasia
some
Festival?
chaos going on. It's Tasia Festival playing against Traced with some crazy stuff going on. Lots of synergy. Ouroboros Lyra Bastion, same sort of thing we saw earlier. Just in a different configuration here in the Traced build. But currently, it's really funny. Tasia potentially threatening to win here with a Beauty Sleep from hand, and meanwhile, Traced probably most accurately trying to threaten to win on the Tumult but might be struggling to manage to survive if there is indeed a beauty sleep here. They're going to need removal.
Yeah, this will tell us right here in a second if the beauty sleep is in hand or not. I'm actually very scared if this is the Muna deck. Yep, there it is. That Tasty Bacon is playing in person because they do live somewhere in Texas and might be at the event on Saturday. And I want that Muna Scout card, but I do not want to go up against Festival.
Yeah, what are your thoughts about Festival? I know you don't like Hostage Akasha, but what about Festival decks?
Yeah, I don't like Festival either. I think it. So if there's a tier list of the worst things to me, Akesha is number one. Small Step Giant Leap in its current iteration is right below, and right below that is Festival. Festival doesn't really upset me in any way. I just think it's annoying. I don't know. Um, if you're paying any attention to the content creator rotisserie draft that Elio put together, I was absolutely gobsmacked by Blue's deck the other day because, spoiler alert, it's a Waru Festival deck, and that was disgusting. So, if you haven't watched Kojo Main's video that's out, Blue has a video that's out, and then the others will have videos coming out soon. Victor hasn't put a video out yet, or did he?
Don't think so, not yet. Or maybe I'm wrong, but
Yeah, I'll have to
not that I've
check.
seen.
I think his videos are in Italian, but I should watch it with subtitles and see how much I get of it. While we're chatting here, though, it looks like the games are pretty much over, so I'll just actually take us over to the interview screen. Um, oh man, as I'm shitting on Tasty Bacon playing Festival. Sorry. No hard feelings. The other thing I'll say is like half of it is memes. If you really spend enough time talking to me, you know I do not get upset very often.
It's true.
Um, those are the three things that I do find semi annoying.
It's
Uh,
just so funny to me that we've been bouncing between we saw Hostage Waru, Hostage Akasha, and then it's Sadi where you're like, "Yeah, I don't find this fun." And then we're like, "Cole, what do you like?" We get to a Tasia game and it's Tasia Festival and you're like, "No, I hate this."
yeah. I play Tasia. I play Muna basically 95% of the time. And I do not like mana reaping very much. So those things are very, very hard for me to play against. Fen has been really hard to play against as
Mhm.
well lately, but it feels a little more like a battle than getting nuked and then your opponent just leaving, walking away. Festival is not too bad. I just think when the game just abruptly ends and you can't really do much about it, it's just not the most exciting to me.
Meanwhile, we Freeloader, who we saw briefly on the Arjun earlier, is currently sitting at 3-0, so very likely to be getting an Arjun record today if he's able to not lose 3 rounds in a row here.
Well, we will see. As for Waru, I don't think you could. I could be wrong. I don't think you could find anywhere of me really complaining about Waru. I always agreed that he was very strong, especially in his heyday, and Robin Hood was problematic. I just saw it more of something that was very strong and tried to play against it, not necessarily something that was annoying. But that is me different than most people. Double tax and triple tax uniques though were insane. So
Yeah, I think that's been some of the saltiest I've been in Altered thus far is playing Waru myself and then running into double tax Robins. Yeah, good times.
yeah, that period of time was kind of boring for casting, and I think the game has been the most fun it's ever been since the Robin Hood change specifically. But it wasn't really anything I complained about too much.
And with that, we are now into round 4. Cole, are there any tables that you think would be really fun to watch?
Yeah, we've had some good things here. I am tempted to curse Freeloader 3 times, but we actually see good friend Mandarin PJ here at table 4 and a name that I don't recognize, M. Kamui. So
Mhm.
let's go to table 4 and see what we're working with here.
It's worth noting as well that if we do choose to tune into freeloader games at some point, they're likely to go much more quickly than any of the other games. So we will often be able to bounce around a little bit there. But M Kamui, I recognize the name. I think they've played some Sigismar, but I'm not sure what they're playing today.
Yep, they are playing Sigismar.
To
So
see.
I have just picked a great table. Once again, we mentioned how we hadn't seen a Siggy yet, and I just threw us right into one. But a Siggy versus a Fen, I am of the belief that the answer to both a Faunus and Siggy right now is Fen. What do you think about that?
Um, I think Fen is one of the better decks that's probably not at the highest tier, where I think the consensus is for the most part that's probably Ephanis and Sigismar occupying that exclusively. There's some debate as to whether Sigismar is better or Ephanis is better or whatnot. I definitely think that Fen is one of the decks that can do a pretty good job in general. I think that there are some different configuration options. Like we have seen some really cool things where people are playing without aloe vera anymore in some cases, even, which is particularly resilient against strategies like Ephanos, where you know aloe vera can sometimes be a liability when you're playing into a deck that has 3 copies of Off You Go and can loop them repeatedly. So at least there are some cool techs that some Fen players are using to try to shore up those matchups where they can. I don't know if I think it's a good answer to both of those decks. Maybe not at the same time. It probably depends on your configuration, but I would at least imagine that you're very much not just dead in either of these matchups. Like, there's a lot of gameplay that you likely have access to.
Yeah, when I'm thinking of Fen right now, it is definitely what I think Mandarin is playing. I don't know if there are any uniques that help, but basically the type of Fen that is not sending things to discard very often. Is piling up in the reserve and using a lot of support abilities as well as a lot of interaction. There's the acapella, there's, off you go. I don't think cloth cocoon is used very much in that, or it's right there, but I'm not sure if say like El Wee or someone usually runs cloth cocoon, do they?
I think for the most part, most Fen players are playing a couple copies of Cloth Cocoon. It used to be one of these cards that you would virtually always see it as a 3 of in a Fen deck. At this point, I think it's often a lot closer to a 2 of, making some room for both additional characters, but also just some other spells. Magical Training has very much become a key part of most Fen strategies at this point, for really good reason. It synergizes so well with your game plan that already wants to be stalling to start off your turn. Just playing a 1 mana spell that draws you a card can be really excellent. And there are a lot of things in the Lyra faction that do let you start looping cards like that, whether that's an Ouroboros Inkcaster from with that ability when it goes to reserve that you get to pick up a card. That returning a magical training, for example, on the first turn of the game is absolutely insane. But then there's other cards now as well, like Sleight of Hand, which is starting to get picked up a little bit as well. I think in this case, Mandarin is even choosing to play one Sleight of Hand, but notably, I believe it's just the common, which actually just exchanges a character with a card from hand. So isn't being used in this case to pick up magical trainings, but it's likely they have some pretty good uniques that works well with.
Yeah, I took a second to look back through some of the Fen lists. I think part of the reason why I wasn't visualizing the cloth cocoon as much is we've seen a lot more Twinkle Twinkle out of Fen lately, which I feel gets played a lot more often. And exactly like you said, they're running cloth cocoon, but it's not as commonly a three of anymore.
Yeah, Twinkle Twinkle in general is just a really good card for Fen specifically, I would say. In general, cards that have that support ability to discount the next play are very much things that the deck wants to be running because you're just going to natively hit them off of your Noon ability from the Fen hero so often. And that can give you a leg up. It's a good way of breaking parity with your opponent. But otherwise, it's also a really good way of closing out the game, even if you don't have access to, say, Small Step, Giant Leap. Of course, you can sometimes play that card as well in Fen, but you don't have to. And it can just be a really good way of cheesing a win towards the end. Your opponent only has two characters. You can just sleep them both by playing Twinkle Twinkle and then Twinkle Twinkle again. It's four twinkles, and yeah, that can do the trick.
Four twinkles and good night.
Accurate.
Oh, we saw an off you go take out that Kokoba very quickly. It's this Ozma is not very good from reserve, but is pretty good from hand. Well, it has such high requirements for not as much payoff, so it is a very interesting Ozma here. And Dorothy heard us talking about her earlier and is peeking out here in the Ozma unique art.
Teamwork training, going after that Magpeng Hoarder there, trying to ensure that they'll be able to progress at least on one side. Chances are that's going to work out for them. It could be that there's another rare Magpeng Hoarder, but otherwise, it looks like Sigismar should be able to take an expedition progression this turn. And yeah, things are not looking bad for Fen, but I do have to say, it is definitely pretty threatening that there is both this Ordis carrier out that is also adding a repeated Ordis recruit to the companion side, not just the hero side from that Noon ability of Sigismar's. But they are at the point now where they are potentially able to just in one day close out the game via double advance for Sigismar. So suddenly, Fen is reliant on drawing good cards that they need at the right times here, and having to discard down a ton of cards from their reserve this turn. One little upside, though, is having this winter outfits in play means that it should be a little bit easier to stabilize on that hero side, at least for this day.
Yeah, I myself prefer doing the one rare winter outfits in a deck. That's probably one of my new favorite things. If you do not know about the rare winter outfits, it loses fleeting when it's played. Hypothetically, it can be removed and be sent to discard. But since it's an expedition permanent, it's one cost, and it's not really something like a Muna Bastion or anything else like that. 9 times out of 10, I get away with using it over and over.
Yeah. Oh, interesting seeing some of these cards coming out as well. We have actually really good expeditions for an Ordis Gatekeeper now from Sigismar as well, which adds stats to both sides of the board. And notably, they are on both mountain expeditions for the Sigi at least, which is really nice for this sort of Ordis Gatekeeper. But yeah, wondering what else might be able to come out here from the Fen, given that they do still have access to the Martingale support ability to make something cost one less. But
Not
ooh,
anymore.
Order Spy taking that out. Ooh, Fen has their work cut out for them now.
Yeah. This what we have here? Inkcaster I don't think is going to Well, I mean, we're not over yet. Got a little ahead of myself there. I thought maybe there was a potential for Siggy to just overcome by one, but it does not look like it. We do see a foundry mechanic in the discard. There's also the what's it called, the trooper. There's just a lot of one cost options that Siggy could have played, but not what was in hand, obviously.
This is still stallable for Fen. I think it's going to be so reliant on another good resupply here at noon, but they are working with a ton of hand cards, which is the leg up that they have. I think this Ortis Gatekeeper, though, is very scary, but so is this Ortis Spy. Notably, that is the rare, so it does create an extra recruit token for just 2 mana, which is super nice. Plays great through removal. And it's a pretty stocked reserve for Sigismar, actually.
Yeah, that is nice. We have two uniques in discard. There might be a third, and a lot of Ortis uniques get benefits off of having characters. You didn't already know, unless the unique says it has to be a non-token character. The recruits do count as a character. I'm not sure if we'll see another unique, but it's highly possible, especially now that there are 4 bodies. Other thing is it makes teamwork training very strong, and we've only seen one so far.
Yep, you're definitely right on that. And that is the sort of thing that's incredibly threatening from Sigismar on turns like this, where, yeah, they're trying to close out the game. They get a token now on both sides, thanks to this Ortis Carrier, even. They have so many characters that are both low cost or come with additional characters, meaning that removal is very poor into them. And then, if you do commit to playing something like an Aloe Vera here, a removal spell at a timely point in time, it will just win the game on the spot, essentially.
Yeah, the what's going for Fen here is the Martingale and the Ouroboros Inkcaster both have those discount options. You could play Off You Go straight from reserve again for 2, but we still need some more stats here, and that's just a very perfect Frog Prince lined up. 3 on the forest, 3 on water, which is exactly where Siggy is right now.
But this could be actually doable for Fen if they have an Anansi. Anansi here would be enough to stall, if not win, on the companion side. So it might come down to whether the last card from Sigismar is like a 1-cost character or not, or something like a Rallying Call.
Yeah. Do you think this last card for Siggy is still the same last card?
My guess is that it's not a 1-cost character. Um, Oftentimes, if they did have that in that exact amount of mana in order to play the cards like that, they would often play the 1-cost closer to the start of the turn, at least to try to show minimal information with cards like the Frog Prince as well. But yeah, looks like it is barely enough for Sigismar here. Yeah, Mandarin not able to find another Anansi there, unfortunately for them. So yeah, the Sigismar and Kamui does manage to take the game.
Yeah, that is cool croupier, but the winner outfits is in some ways on the wrong side, in some ways on the right side. Just a very sneaky win by Siggy there. We don't get to see what the last card was. What are your thoughts on the fact that we can't see cards in hand? Do you like it because it gives us the speculation, or would you prefer to see the cards in hand?
I love not being able to see the cards in hand. I personally enjoy putting the puzzle together and trying to explain the puzzle that I see being put together to the viewer. I think that's really fun, and I think as well it does let you get a little bit better into the mindset of the player who's playing out their own cards, trying to anticipate what the opponent has. things can look very solved when you do have access to the cards that are in both players' hands. And as a commentator, it's really easy to be like, well, why don't you just do this? It just beats all the cards they have, but you don't know that they have those cards, you know? And so instead, I love the working with incomplete information part of Altered in general and figuring out what your opponent has based on the lines they choose. I think that's where a lot of the skill in this game comes from.
Yeah, very, very well said. I do like where insert name that Keelan said better than I will said it's cool to see. It would be cool to see them after the game is over. I think that would be very interesting as well. Technically, we could go back and see, but it would be kind of cool if it was flashed at the end. I see you did follow me over here to Sarcasm and Buchok's Navenka versus Sierra. We haven't seen Sarcasm tonight, but it is cool to see that there is another Navenka at play.
You know, I'm really wondering here if there's a potential card like the Magic Slay or something that could come out here for Navenka to try to close it out. Yeah, choice hooking that Paper Herald might be a big deal as well. Yeah, unfortunate part for Sierra is that it looks like at least there's no way currently to enable these Nylum Withered Tree abilities, but it's also entirely possible that they're just waiting until the last possible moment to put them on the correct sides.
Yeah, we are also in day 7, but Sierra is missing a mana, which is very interesting. I'm guessing that was just a choice of not mana-ing a card. Oh, there's a small step right there. I love when a small step gets resupplied. It's like, oh, I just dropped my Magnum condom from my Magnum dong. I hope someone gets that reference. I can't remember if he says monster or what, but anyways, hi Simon. Hello Blue.
Exactly. Beautiful. Yeah. Regardless, though, funny spot we're in, but I'm pretty sure that Sierra has to be able to find a way to take this one here. Mechanical training should let a card get exhausted. That should be enough to outstat on one of the sides with these double Nylums in play. But I mean, let's see if they see it.
Yeah, the can't play a character, so can't resupply on the Davenka side. There is just the one boost potential, which at the most is literally all you can have, one boost. If you roll a 6 or a 1, it is unfortunate in a couple different ways. Here is that mechanical training. This enables you to activate both trees though, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
No, that was nice. It took a little while there, but I think it's just one of these things where they just check the math twice, check the math 3 times. Sometimes with Navenka, that's actually really important to do so. I think Navenka players in general have learned over time that people will make wrong math while playing against that hero, and people will not stop doing that even when they're like pretty high elo in a lot of cases. You can get a lot of wins off of that. I like how Buchok's really made sure to spend their time that they needed in order to make that decision correctly, and then took the line as soon as they found it. It was clean.
Nice. We're seeing some Sierra success. Where's Doombringer? Doombringer has left us. This is the time of Sierra, and Doombringer is gone with the wind.
Yeah, where are you? You were the Sierra hero once upon a time, and Sierra's not bad right now either. It's a decent time to be playing her.
So I'm avoiding table 1 because I feel like that's probably where we're gonna start in the next 2 rounds. This Kaifu game, though, according to BGA, it had a low percentage, but we see Kaifu here having a double unique from that Lyra Bastion again, which, as you mentioned, isn't the best way you want to see it, but it does give her the choice of which one she puts out. The Lindy has a blank canvas. What's going to happen?
Yeah, this is one of these things though where normally in this sort of scenario, Lindaway is a really good hero with the like double Baba's Isba in play, for example. Great space to start. But one, they're actually a little bit low in terms of resources to start with. And two, if they weren't able to interrupt the first Repotter Otter, I doubt they're going to be able to interrupt the second one very easily. And even if it is just one of them hanging around, that can absolutely go crazy. And it is also the case. Kaifu just needs a single expedition progression in order to win the game entirely. Um, yeah, this looks really bad for Lindy. I don't not really sure what to say.
Blizzard. Blizzard is scary.
Blizzard's a good start, but the problem is here with this current Repotter Otter just sitting around,
Yeah.
we are going to have a lot more brass bugs really quickly. So they also managed to find another Inari, so the chain is going to continue for a long time. I don't think it can go indefinitely here, but honestly, they're getting towards that point. It's sort of scary what this deck can do when they have the uniques for it. This is shocking, actually.
Yeah. I like you said before when we went to a Kaifu game, they usually seek out very specific uniques to build something entertaining. And this is what we are seeing right here. And the past 45 seconds, I definitely did not go a little quieter because I was finding a screenshot from Always Sunny to make a meme later so that I didn't forget. And here to show this Lady of the Lake, which is from reserve, you may sacrifice a character if you do draw a card. And then the quick action of the next spell you play this turn loses fleeting. There are a lot of bugs on screen, though.
Yeah, that is true, and not the sort that we need to report to the BGA people.
Yeah.
These are the good kind of bugs that Axiom players love to see. It's just it's just funny. It's a cool synergistic Lady of the Lake for the for the Lindaway player here. The uniques we're seeing from the other side are also cool and synergistic. Sort of unfortunately for this Lady of the Lake, just sort of puts her to shame. It's kind of insane.
Yeah, and there's just not much left here for Lindaway, unfortunately.
Does pick up a couple cards there, thanks to that unique plus rare Moonlight Jellyfish getting sacrificed with Fleeting. But yeah, there's just a Maw here, and that's not going to be enough, or not even close to it. So yeah, Sierra managing to take that one over a pretty solid Lindaway build.
GG's. Look at Sierra. We're gonna see the stocks increase. Shout out to Repotter Otters. That should bring us to just about the end of round 4 here. Yeah, basically. I'll take us to the interview screen. We have Kaifu's actually undefeated after that game. I did not even notice. So that is a undefeated Sierra going into round 5.
Well, the best part about that is that one of the likely matchups is an undefeated Arjun. So not the most common matchups that we would ever see. I'm not sure what Marks from Team GG is playing, but if that's something interesting, that would be really cool.
Yeah,
Oh,
we're
but it's Sigismar.
oh man.
So who knows? Maybe we'll get the glorious Sierra versus Arjun. Maybe not. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see what the BGA gods conjure up for us here. And that'll be here in a second. Do we have we do have one game. How is this the hostage game? I have a feeling it is. No, it's Siggy versus Basira down here. They're fighting it out. Game shouldn't be too much longer, and then we'll get into round 5. As we've mentioned, the undefeated players are GG Marks, AQZ Freeloader, and KRA Kaifu. This is the Wednesday AWOL event. If you are not already subscribed on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. And yeah, how are you feeling this week in Altered, Keelan guy?
How am I feeling? I'm feeling great. Altered's awesome. It's super fun. I think, as usual, I don't think all of the things to explore have gotten anywhere close to fully explored, which is sweet. But yeah, just having a lot of fun with it overall. Watching players do things. I'm really enjoying the fact that now there's both events with uniques, like most of the ones in our typical cast of events, like AWOL, but also others where there's like uniqueless play as well, which can I think give really good intel about like what's actually working for people and why it's working for people. And that sort of analysis is always really fun, at least to me. So I'm enjoying myself.
I
You, Cole.
cannot agree
What are your
more.
thoughts?
I'm giving tasty bacon crap in the chat for the small step giant leap comments while playing festival. But it's all good. Everyone by now agrees that small step is also very annoying. Um, I don't. I really don't know if we'll see a change to it anytime soon, but they've surprised me before, so we'll see. Small step was um technically on the watch list, right?
Believe so, yeah. That is my understanding, at least. And I think in a lot of cases as well, I mean, like bans like the Robin Hood errata that we've seen before, I call it a ban because that card ceased to exist practically and for all intents and purposes. The Robin Hood ban was the sort of thing where there was potential counterplay and there were some decks that people were developing that could actually prey on that at that point in time. It was still super oppressive, but more than anything else, Equinox had the feeling that people just hated playing against it, and that on its own was a good enough reason to get rid of it. And I think that Small Step might be a situation like that as well. It just doesn't feel good. I guess I'm of two minds on this. One, I have Izmir player brain. I'm like, I don't know what my faction is going to do without access to a card like that, actually, in a lot of cases. But on the other hand, I also have commentator brain. I hate watching every game that I tab to end via a small step giant leap. It's very anticlimactic and it doesn't feel good playing against that. So honestly, I don't think I would mind too much if there was some changes made there.
Yeah. I think Afanis is still very good without it. The small step inclusion just makes it so you have to basically try for one less afternoon than everyone else. And if there was some kind of check or some kind of chance that someone could have to get around it, it'd be a different story. Really, as I've said before, my only complaint is when I lose to small step when I was progressed the same amount and poised to win via stats
Mm-hmm.
in the expedition, but Afanis or whoever is using it just outright wins because they have small step. I feel
Yep,
like that's when it feels really bad. But
that's
we'll
fair.
we'll see what happens. I did pull up the watch list and it is on there confirmed. Now the question is if they were to suspend or change one of the cards that Ysmir has on this list, which one would you pick? And would it be small step or something else?
Oh, what are the other Izmir cards on the list again? You'll have to give me a refresher then in that case.
Yeah, so small step, giant leap, all versions. Helping hand, Ysmir rare. Katagiran Mage Dancer, Ysmir common and rare. And then the Baba Yaga Ordis out of faction.
Mhm.
I think that's just for Ordis. Yeah, because they're saying in Ordis, I think. And then just the uniques, which is kind of a side thing.
let's hop into table 1 while I answer that question. It's round 5. But
Round 5.
I think personally my favorite change there would be hitting small step giant leap and making it something along the lines of nerf it to make it cost 9 or 10 mana. I think that would be still a playable card, still useful in some of the same situations, but just a little bit less frustrating in the games where a deck like Afanis just takes a tempo lead early on, plays like 4 turns of a normal game, and then just wins, and there was nothing you could do about it at any point in time. I think just that would remove some of the more ridiculous cases of the card, make it a little bit worse while still letting it be playable. I think that would be cool. Otherwise, I don't know. I think that I'm also of the mindset that there are some very powerful things that you can be doing with cards in general across the vast majority of factions. I don't really see the reason why we would need to hit a bunch of other things as well. I still think there's a ton of really strong options that you could be doing. Like, I mean, anything out of Sigismar, super strong. A lot of the Afana synergies are absolutely insane. I mean, Muna anchoring stuff, also super insane. I think if we're hitting that, we have to hit a lot of things, and that worries me a little bit. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I think if I had to pick one, it would also be Small Step. I understand how Helping Hand and some of those other cards are very strong, but they don't feel bad to play against very often, and I feel like they are kind of the what's the word? They are part of like the identity of an Afanis deck, or maybe even Lindaway or a Kesha. So I would not want them to change all of those cards. I think it would be pick one,
Mhm.
maybe 1.5. But if I had to pick one, I think, yeah, Small Step and just leave the rest alone, and then I'm pretty happy.
Fair enough. Currently, I wanted us to jump into table 1 for the reason that this might be the only undefeated versus undefeated player match that we get for the remainder of the tournament, um, because there are only 3 undefeated players total. So I wanted to jump into this one, and it's likely to be a quick one. Sigismar versus Arjun. Arjun, a deck that if it's winning, it typically wins fast. If it's losing, it typically loses fast. And Sigismar definitely has the means to try to win the game very quickly. But we'll see. Notably, main win condition here for Arjun. There's virtually no other way to win the game other than Lyra Festival in this configuration of the deck. This is pedal to the metal, go as fast as you can, speed combo. The way this often works is you just play out characters on turn 1, so they'll sit in your reserve. Day 2 of the game, you'll play out a Lyra Festival, and then day 3, as soon as day 3 at least, you will play out cards from your reserve, and then try to just go for the win immediately. And if not, you have a bunch of redundancy cards like Harvest at Rare, Frozen Delivery as well, cards like Esmeralda, which let you dig through your deck a little bit more for more copies of things like Lyra Festival, or just other characters that you need at the right time. The question here is going to be, does Freeloader have the means to either dodge a removal spell, which it does look like they might be able to do here. This is a win. This is a win for
Yeah.
Freeloader.
Yeah.
This is a day 3 win for Freeloader, by the way. In case you're wondering how you can beat Sigismar and play Arjun and make Arjun look good. Yep, day 3 win. And this is not uncommon for Arjun. I was doing this a while ago. In a, back in Beyond the Gates even. The deck was originally created by a guy named Darklight out of Spain. I tried to help him a little bit with it. But overall, we came to the conclusion that going as fast as possible, it's it's a good strategy, most specifically because there's very little counterplay when you can actually get it. And because of that Argent hero ability, it's actually really consistent. Like it's like 30% of games that you can try to go off this way. It's crazy.
Yeah, I was going to ask if this shroom could have technically satisfied the conditions, because once it enters, things should go in limbo. It should count 3 characters
Mhm.
because it doesn't say 3 or more other
Yep.
characters, and then it could have put the Muna caregiver to sleep. The issue here is Freeloader is very smart and played around removal, just like you
Mhm.
said. Since the festival check is at dusk, you do have to survive to dusk. The thing with Siggy is he hardly ever runs permanent removal. So
Yeah, this deck was a lot worse when everyone was playing Traced in one sense, because most Trace decks were playing a lot of Keylon Burst as their removal, which hits Festival and hits your characters, and they were pretty likely to actually hit a copy of it at some point, at which point you'd typically lose. But yeah, when this deck works, it goes really hard. When it doesn't work, it's really funny. Like sometimes you just will not find a copy of Lyra Festival in your top like 20 cards, and you will lose, and it's also really funny. But yeah, not going that way for Freeloader today. It seems 5-0 with the Arjun Festival. Yeah, and yeah, that 1 mana unique, my sneezer shroom there. It's pretty absurd. Glad that he's enjoying using it.
yeah, it seems that it is highly likely Freeloader will be the only undefeated player after this. But I would not count out Kaifu yet, as we've seen in previous games. Just coming into the game, though, not getting to look around too much yet, it does look like Siggy has a pretty decent lead. And I mean, yeah, like I'm saying, don't count it out yet, because Siggy does not have too much that would give him a move here, except for maybe on the hero side, unless you see something else.
Um, no, I don't at the moment, at least.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm looking, but yeah, it looks tough.
Yeah, if Sierra gets a double move here, I would think, oh yeah, I did not even realize that we still had 2 brass bugs pending. Yeah. So I was looking at it as maybe there's a 1 cost card that Sugi could have put out on the hero side to win by that water, just barely. I did not know we had those brass bugs coming out. So now the game's tied, technically. So I would, if I'm looking at this, say that Sierra is in the lead because of having 2 landmarks, having the very 2 specific landmarks that the Sierra deck wants, um, and having just a little less card advantage than C.
Yeah, this is actually really funny because you were mentioning that yeah, it was not looking so great for Kaifu as we tuned into the game, but actually the setup is just pretty outstanding overall. And yeah, once these uniques start coming out, the deck just operates so well at digging through the rest to find what you need. It doesn't really matter how many cards you have in hand as long as you're able to keep resupplying things and activating those permanent abilities to look at the top 2 and go to the next one. Um, Super insane, and it's really difficult for Sigismar to even interact with this sort of setup.
Yeah, they are thinking. Baba Yaga from reserve isn't too great. I think this Kokoba is a little too expensive from reserve for what it gives you. Always nice to see more respectable uniques being played, and this player making it this far with that kind of unique that isn't anywhere near busted is a testament to their play. Ooh. And we see another Lyra Bastion get added to the reserve that can come down next turn, can trigger the other Bastion, can trigger Sierra, all sorts of good fun. And we still have a frozen delivery here for Sierra.
Yeah, looking really good there. Frozen Delivery just been sort of an all-star card, both in this deck here, but also in that Arjun deck that we saw, which is pretty cool. Yeah, just funny seeing that it looks like maybe the 2 undefeated decks that we're gonna have might be, entirely possible. They're both gonna be Frozen Delivery decks, but still definitely a good chance here for Sigismar. There's various cards that for 3 mana could come out and potentially outstat on the hero side, or potentially block progression on the companion. So we'll see.
Yeah. just taking a closer look at it here as we're more in the middle of the game. Um, I am now realizing that part of the reason frozen delivery is so dang good in this. Well, no, never mind. I am crazy. Don't listen to me. I, for some reason, was thinking frozen delivery exhausted resupply, but it does not. It itself has cooldown, which is a good thing to note. So I'm tired today. If you haven't noticed, anything I say wrong or any mess ups today, all just because I'm tired. That's otherwise
And
I'm usually perfect.
it's 3 a.m. for me, so same.
The
But yeah,
rare
it
one exhausted resupplies. Okay. But so
it's
exhausted resupply would not do the bastion at all though, correct?
would not do the bastion. I'm sorry, what do you mean?
Yeah, because exhausted resupply is not resupply.
Oh, it's
So
not? I thought it used to work this way, at least on
I don't
BGA.
yeah, I don't know.
I've
I
definitely
honestly don't know.
I'm pretty certain I have run into that at some point, and at least the way that BGA handles it is it treated it as a resupply, and then it would replace the exhausted resupply with that Lara Bastion ability. So instead, it would not be exhausted when you choose the card, which was super sick. But I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, everyone seems to agree with you. That is freaking wild.
Yep. I think it's also been kind of cool seeing this game as well. Like, what are the one of and like more sparingly used cards out of the Sierra deck as well? This one of Boom, I think, is particularly interesting at common as well, to as a potential like answer button to anything really critical. There is a chance of potentially hitting cards like Grand Endeavor with that. It's not easy to do so, but it can do. If a big threat comes out like a Hydrocana, it is potentially answerable at least. But yeah, pretty interesting to see.
Yeah. It is only 8 p.m. here, but I don't know. I just did not get restful sleep last night or something. So you guys are crazy, the 3 a.m. crew. I don't know how you do it. I'm too old. And I did know that the Lyra Bastion does not trigger cards like Quetz, which is also insane. It's just a wild Bastion, and to think we haven't really seen it until the past couple weeks.
Watching Kaifu go off like this is so funny to me. I think one of my favorite parts about this sort of like combo where you're just activating these support abilities to just keep going through cards and more cards and more cards is just how many actions you take without your opponent like doing anything. They're
Yeah.
just sort of sitting there watching cards fly everywhere. It's so funny.
Some people found a way to make Altered more like Magic.
So true.
And then just the little frog comes out.
Yeah, luckily for Kaifu there, that Muna Druid just costing 2 from reserve should be enough to take the hero expedition at least. So we are going into a turn where both players will be adjacent, but can't help but feel like that's a good situation for our Sierra player to be in with the permanents they have access to. If they're able to dig for another unique, they should be in a really good spot here, and Sigismar's on very low resources.
Yeah, what do we have? Yeah, none of the uniques are currently in the discard, so they are either in the deck or in hand. I would bet there's one in hand. It seems like it has been the staple of Kaifu closing out the game, making sure that's available to put down at the end, and then you just see the bugs everywhere.
And yeah, the bugs are pretty awesome. One of the main reasons for that, like something that other players have been doing as well, have been using characters that gain boosts, for example, when with the same sort of effect, like when cards go from hand or your deck into reserve. But notably, the brass bugs are better in a lot of cases because they do dodge removal, or they don't exactly dodge removal, but it just eats one brass bug instead of your entire payoff, which is really nice.
Yeah, as for Sierra performing without these uniques, yeah, I think we're seeing more and more of that. And there's a couple different decks that have started to do a lot better. as Freeloader mentioned, there's always the classic brass bug hive, which can be very nasty once you get up to 2 or some turns even 3 of those. And then I've really enjoyed the brass bug hive withered tree combo or some of those
Yeah. Oh,
others, moth. So there's some very good Sierra out there, and we've seen a lot more in the past 2 weeks, which is cool.
totally agreed.
I seems as I was wrong. The unique was not in hand, but I bet if Kaifu had her way, it would have been in hand. Uh, let's see if there's another cycle here from the Gibble.
It's just so absurd what this card does. Oh my god.
Uh, it is funny. I think it might have been Freeloader who said, "I never want to play Gibble." They just all use it for the quick action, even though there are times where playing it from reserve and creating a brass bug token could be a decent turn. Just like, nah, boy just gets sacrificed every time.
There's also decks that just can't remove a thing that has high cost, even if it's like sort of bad in the way that it doesn't have like excellent stats or anything. Um, Gibble does, but things like teamwork training, virtually never going to hit it. The same goes for Tiny Jail, that also won't hit it. So Sigismar often just won't have any removal for that card, which is funny. But yeah, Kaifu handily taking that in that last day. The uniques just popping off like crazy. It looked like there was nothing in reserve to go along with it, but turns out it just comes with its own ability, that typical Repotter Otter, putting a card from your hand into reserve, triggering its own ability, and then immediately just going off with that one card. Absolutely insane. Super sweet build, super sweet uniques, and yeah, super sweet 2 undefeated players who are both on really cool builds.
Oh, I pulled up something very interesting. I forgot the table number, but it's Hat Neo against Bro
Mhm.
Vancher. We have definitely, I don't think we've seen either of these players yet today, but we have a Ghoul Ring who is doing very Ghoul Ring right now. I think, I don't know. See, a Faunus with 5 mana, though.
When you say doing very Golrang, you mean dying to a Faunus? Because
Yeah.
that does, unfortunately, to me, strike me as indeed very Golrang, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah, Faunus just sort of popping off here. They can do a lot of things with the cards they have access to. Sleight of hand, really great because you can pick up removal, you can pick up other spells. Even if you're not picking up anything, it's just an additional Faunus trigger. And with that Mage Dancer in play, just playing, like, virtually anything, just any cards that we can see currently, will be enough.
Yep. I was just barely catching up, and as soon as I saw the 0 mana for Ghoul Ring and 5 for Afanis, I was like, oh no, it's over. It's Jover. Especially with the Mage Dancer out and another body to catch boosts where needed. Yeah, that's at least, you know what? It is not a game ended by small step giant leap, so
That is true. I will absolutely give you credit for that. Um, Not ended by small step giant leap. I would have loved to have seen a Golrang take a victory against Nephanus there, but not meant to be, unfortunately. But it's always also. I mean, by me, I'm a Nephanus player. It's fine to see a Nephanus win as well. It's okay.
yeah. Freeloader says that he's not looking forward to getting a result on Ghoul Ring. I famously still have not made my follow-up video to my first Ghoul Ring video. So maybe I'll try my very hardest so that you can watch it and do something entirely different because you're smarter than I am. But I loaded up table 10 as it seemed to be low on progress, and we see a Basira with a Clue being menacing right now.
Yeah, actually looking pretty massive at the moment, which is pretty sweet. Physical training, one of these cards that can actually just be really good in certain situations. both as a card advantage engine, but also just to enable this A.W.O.L ability, for example, and keep exhausting things in reserve is pretty sweet in this sort of scenario. And yeah, A.W.O.L can be pretty big in this Basira deck as well.
Yeah. Very, very scary. I think a clue is fun in Tasia as well, but it's just not as strong as it is in Bravos, especially because if you don't know, it does not have the from anywhere arrow to gain a boost. It only gains a boost from reserve. So how you're using a clue in Tasia is counting on it being the first character that you play to get the Tasia boost, or having a unique that puts boosts, or playing from reserve. So it's just not quite as strong. I have switched over to Jack Frost as it's just a little bit better in Muna.
Jack Frost has been pretty cool to see in general, both in Sigismar, but also out of the Muna decks that do tend to run it sometimes. It is one of the few times that Muna actually then has a card that can interact with the opponent's reserve, which can be a little tricky here and there.
Yep. I need to use the restroom real quick. Are you good?
I'm happy I can solo cast this for a minute.
All right, I will be right back. Enjoy the Basira and Navenka.
So yeah, with the current turn order as we had it, a Clute coming out here just exhausts both cards from the Navenka's reserve. Not the happiest spot ever for Navenka. Really wondering what that remaining card in their hand is. If that is something like a character, there's even a chance they're wondering if it can potentially outstat something on the hero side, at which point there's a chance that they just don't even want to play it. Potentially, it is also something with this Ouroboros Trickster unique that's in the reserve, where they might be thinking about potentially saving that to trigger the when you play another character with a base statistic of 0, you may pay 1 and give a character fleeting ability. But I like the choice, just playing out something here to try to prevent Basira from moving forward on that hero side as well as the companion. It's a little awkward, but it's the sort of thing that sometimes you just have to do. And yeah, Basira just taking the opportunity, drawing an extra card, and they're still going to be ahead in the tumult by 2 now with this Haven Sarengar. Unless this die roll lands, which it does. All right, does manage to take an expedition, so just ahead by 1 on the tumult. But yeah, not an optimal spot to be in for Navenka. They're definitely not out of it, but Basira is working with so many cards at this point, and there's a pretty high chance that Navenka might actually start missing mana very soon, if not immediately. Interestingly, this Haven Sarengar unique did have the ability when it leaves the expedition zone if it was fleeting sabotage, but also when I go to reserve from the expedition zone, you may roll a die, and on a 4+, you get to return a card other than it from reserve to your hand. So they did manage to pick up their card there. They're Cernunnos, so they are working with a couple more cards actually than I would potentially expect there. And yeah, I'm wondering whether we're going to try to see the pairing of these two uniques then for Navenka this turn to potentially tax some cards from Basira. That line is a little bit weaker though, largely because Basira did manage to draw a couple extra cards with those physical trainings, so they're not exactly running out of gas in case their characters do get fleeting. But yeah, notably as well now, both hero expeditions are currently on a good setup for this Haven Sarengar unique. So it is actually potentially threatening to block and advance particularly well. Rolling a 6 here with this ability gives a pair of boosts to the Ouroboros Trickster. It is a pretty standard Ouroboros Trickster ability in that, but only when played from reserve. And wow, that Haven Bouncer just does eat that Haven Sarengar right off the bat. Out from Basira before Navenka commits their last card, which I like absolutely. But ooh, Icebound Peak from Basira. Yeah, that's a pretty cool inclusion for a lot of Bravo stacks at this point. We sometimes see it in Kojo, and I've actually seen it at Sadi at one point as well, which is really cool. But it works whenever a character you control gains fleeting to get a trial counter, 3 trial counters, you sacrifice it, get a Dragon Shade, and you boost up every character that you control, which is pretty awesome. And yeah, synergizes well with Bravo's Tracer, which natively gets fleeting, which is a downside, but hey, at least it triggers Icebound Peak. But yeah, actually, this day, Navenka manages to win thanks to a good die roll onto the Cernunnos. So yeah, suddenly tied back up. And it's still looking better for Basira, I would say, largely because they did manage to set up that Icebound Peak, but still very playable situation for both players.
Well, well said, well said. What I like about the Basira and the one counter being on the peak already is hopefully we see something like a rabbit. That Chiron is really good as well, and the Haven. Hopefully we see at least 3 or more characters come out right now, trigger that dragon, and then give all of the characters boosts. They are running low on time though, so they gotta. Oh, interesting.
Wow. Oh
I
my
was not
goodness.
expecting the other Haven.
Perfect resupplies there. Believe it or not, I think one of the best synergies in it that I've seen from Basira. I mean, Basira is a hero really focused around synergy with the hero ability. One of the ones that we've seen as a classic now from Trial by Frost is just using the hero ability with an Aklut to exhaust multiple cards from reserve, which is sweet. But I think the other, like maybe just one of the strongest normal synergies of the deck is having Haven Bravos Bastion out and having a Chiron in your reserve. Playing out a Chiron like that is absolutely insane. You get so much stats, you get to distribute them pretty much where you need to. It activates that hero ability. I love that sort of setup in general, and it's looking particularly good right here.
Yeah, I don't think there's a way out of this. Well, there is still the Navenka ability. There's the possibility of a martingale, but I would not be surprised to see a win here from Basira off of whatever happens next. Won't be a fire rabbit. I'm fairly certain we'll probably see that Chiron come out. There's not much else a Navenka can do.
Yeah, that Icebound Peak really being sort of the nail in the coffin here. That dragon will be coming down. It will be giving each character a boost. Not that they even need the boost. Even it should just be enough Chiron plus a dragon. Um, but yeah, it's so good. Really perfect resupplies off of that double Haven. Delicious.
Yep, no martingale. Using the Navenka ability without playing it kind of tells you that. And this Chiron is going to get some boosts. Basira is going to give a boost. And we still don't even have the dragon out yet, which will go on the companion side to tie it up and then distribute its own boosts for the win. I think in my opinion, this Icebound Peak and the Taiga are probably the 2 most playable Icebound permanents.
Mhm.
Um, I think the other ones are just not quite up to par. I mean, in that Wario deck, I guess the lake is
Yeah, I was
good,
gonna say
but
Lake is pretty funny.
but I don't think it compares competitively.
All
Um,
right, Cole, I have to ask you, which frozen delivery deck is going to take it, do you think? Do you think Freeloader's gonna get the day 3 win, or do you think that Kaifu is going to assemble the whatever that combo is, the Ouroboros plus sweet setup?
yeah, so this starts our final round, round 6, right? We're just getting the matches going up here. I'm pulling up the top table, which is exactly what Keelan Guy just mentioned. Last 2 undefeated players, Freeloader and Kaifu. Ever loading the game, we have been notified. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't remember what Kaifu has in the way of permanent removal, and I think that is really going to be the deciding factor here.
I have a really exciting announcement as well, which is regardless of the player that wins, there will be for the first time a 6-0 finish with each of these respective heroes. If Freeloader wins on Arjun, that would be the first 6-0 Arjun finish in an event like this, at least on 39 cards. And same goes for Sierra of Kaifu. So that's really cool overall.
That is very awesome. So let's see here. Next turn is when we would want to see the festival come out, right?
Yep, that would be optimal setup.
Yeah. The I tend to judge the Icebounds by what the payoff is that you get, and I just think anchored and boosting all characters are probably the best payoffs. Icebound Lake is definitely, I think, a little better than whatever one it is that lets you draw a card or ready your reserve comparatively. I do not think those ones are very great.
Fair enough. All right, so the critical dynamic in general, if you're playing against this Arjun deck specifically, is find removal, and then the second thing that you need to do is find ways of progressing as many times as you can. You need to close out the game as quickly as you can. Arjun will struggle to contest you pretty much at every turn, so just play out characters to advance. But otherwise, the only thing you care about is finding removal. Ideally, if it's permanent removal that can hit a 4-mana permanent, that is ideal. If it is removal that hits characters, that can work, but you ideally need potentially a little more. This deck, the Argent deck, can often actually play around 1 to 2 character removal spells. But yeah, the real threat here is just the ability to you just have to close out the game as quickly as you can to avoid letting Arjun dig all the way through their deck, especially the draws like this where they just do not natively have a Lyra Festival to start with, despite having dug a little bit. So that's definitely what Freeloader's looking for. He's looking for Lyra Festival. It's interesting because I feel like the gameplay strategy just works a little bit better in this matchup specifically for the Arjun deck. Sierra doesn't really want to have to take turns off to set up their own combo. If there's a threat of Freeloader deploying just out the Lyra Festival setup at that point. So that can be a little rough.
Yeah, I think Kaifu does have maybe Boom and maybe Kellen
There's
Burst.
1 copy of Avalanche as removal for characters, 1 copy of Boom, and 1 copy of Kill and Burst. That is all.
Mm.
The upside of going to try to set up the setup Ouroboros and whatnot for Kaifu is that makes them so much more likely to actually hit that removal. They just need to do so with good enough timing to avoid this. But yeah, and it does likely, I mean, especially if you see the Spindle Bastion, you're really focusing on, okay, chances are I need to be removing the Lyra Festival itself instead of characters. But yeah, that one actually gets completely removed at the moment from reserve just to give something anchored with the Argent ability. So yeah, suddenly Avalanche is also looking like a potential way to stop this combo.
Yeah, you said that Arjun is poised very well in this matchup. I would
Mhm.
also say out of the matchups we've seen against this Arjun deck, this Sierra deck is maybe one of the better ones going in. It's not going to be like Siggy where there's almost zero, most of the time, zero permanent removal. There's that cycle ability, like you said. The question is, does Kaifu have any sabotage? Because being the first player right now, that would be very useful. Does not look like it's going to get sabotaged, though.
No, I don't think they play any in their deck as well. The thing is, both of these decks are incredibly streamlined. There's virtually no chance that the Argent deck is playing removal, for example. They are likely playing Beauty Sleep, though, as a sleep effect. But proper removal, virtually zero. Um, Same goes for some of the chaff from Sierra as well. Sometimes you do need to be able to dig for specific answers, which is why we do see those one-ofs of Boom, Avalanche, Kill and Burst. But otherwise, it's super streamlined. They're not going to be playing things that sabotage because those cards have a cost to play them. And what this deck wants to do, it wants to be playing permanence with cost, and then otherwise just going completely off of these support abilities. And, sabotaging cards, while good, just don't work with that strategy.
All right, where are we at? We got a fleeting. We're gonna have an anchored here.
So this is a setup for the next turn to try to go off the next turn for a win.
Yep, the
Notably,
keeping the fleeting on the spindle.
yep. Notably, it is one though where potentially there's actually a world where Freeloader on Arjun could win this turn through removal on Lyra Festival, because they already have this character out in play with Fleeting. Playing 2 cards to gain Anchored and Asleep is totally possible, especially where there's a Snoozer Shroom already in play, and then just having 4 mana for a Lyra Festival, totally doable at this point, actually. So that's particularly scary. I'm wondering what we're going to see from this at noon resupply off of the Axiom processor, and otherwise if Kaifu can potentially dig to find what they need here in terms of removal or potentially multiple removal spells.
Yeah, I wonder. We'll have to ask Freeloader after this if this is the furthest a game has gone. I believe he was saying earlier that almost all of the games have gone the same way, meaning ending in day 4, 5 at the most, maybe. We're going into day 5, but I wonder if the Sierra is the one that's taken it to the limit, or there was a game that went a little longer.
Is so crazy. And the game is likely to end on this day right here. I think it's very unlikely there's going to be much stats contesting. The question is just going to be, can Freeloader set up a win with Lyra Festival that doesn't get interrupted by Kaifu? That's it.
Yep, and we don't see the Lyra Bastion out yet. We only see an Axiom reprocessor.
All right, but Kaifu is starting to dig through the deck. They do have access to a couple different abilities, and Avalanche is maybe the best of them. Really impressive card to find here. Being able to potentially remove multiple characters from this win condition of the festival. It's just then the question then becomes, do they actually want to remove multiple things when it could be potentially replayed, and whether or not Freeloader can win through that anyway?
Yeah, 5 mana. I think if I'm Kaifu, knowing Muna does not have any form of sabotage, and this Arjun deck probably doesn't. The boom. Yeah, I was gonna say I wait to play Avalanche because there's potential for Kaifu to win right here, depending on how things go. It'll be interesting to see if the boom is played or the Avalanche.
Yeah, this is so sick. I think that Boom is likely the better option at this point,
Yeah,
but it's
because
gonna
there
be,
can be
yeah.
another. Yeah, there can be just another festival that is in hand. So
But I think the biggest problem here for Freeloader is the fact that he has to make an action before Kaifu decides. That
mhm.
should likely give Kaifu all the information they need in order to find the correct decision. What a crazy one, though. It's actually really interesting from Freeloader. He correctly placed you virtually never do this in normal games of Altered. Placing your anchored character intentionally away from your own floral tent, because in this case there's multiple situations here where the spindle harvester's getting removed itself could actually be a potential upside to it going to reserve instead of hanging out in play. So it was definitely very smart that they chose to put it on the other side away from that floral tent.
Oh, there's the Bastion, but that quick action from the Repotter Otter unique is going to cycle again and create more bugs. And here we see the boom over the Avalanche. A festival can still be played, but then there should be nothing that could be slept.
Correct. There wouldn't be enough mana to play a character to sleep, so that will end the game. That was probably 1 mana away from a
There
win.
is the festival.
Yep. Impressive.
Yeah, that was a glorious ending.
What a finals. I'm so happy. It's so cool.
Yeah, that was cool. GG's to both Kaifu and Freeloader. Thank you both for bringing some very interesting things to the finals. It's been twice now where I've mentioned that there isn't a Faunus versus Siggy or a Siggy versus Siggy finals in a tournament in the past week, and someone asks, "What did you guys ban Ortis and Ysmir?" Like, nope. We don't ban heroes in any of the consistent online leagues. I don't know of anyone that does. If we do, it's definitely a break week, a for fun tournament. So this is just what people have been cooking, and it's very good to see.
Yeah, that was incredible. I'm, shocked to see that as a finals and to see how it went as well. That game was on a knife's edge, super sweet. And yeah, regardless of who won, that is the first 6-0 result for their hero. So that is the first 6-0 Sierra finish. It's so cool.
Nice. I'm gonna do something a little different. I'm gonna go down to table 10. It's
Perfect.
also at a good percentage.
Mhm.
So I believe this matchup could determine which of these players is in the top 16 or not.
Ooh.
So I'm not very good at tournament matchup things, but Tasty Bacon is 2 and 5 and at 20th place. Pink Fission is currently right at 16th place and 2 and 5. So this outcome could shake some things up. It also depends on other matches and blah blah blah, but it's always interesting to see a match that could decide some fates.
Yeah, 2 things to say here. One being that, yeah, top 16 do get invited to the AWOL Invitational event for season 2. That's regardless of result. That is just if you are top 16 by the end of it, you would qualify. So that's cool. 2 is this Tasia has a big upside at the moment of having a Spindle Muna Bastion in play, which is a big, big deal when playing against Afanis, and they're ahead on the Tumult. Um, Definitely still a winnable position for Afanis as well, considering that they're 1, a small step deck, 2, using cards like Katagiri Mage Dancer, which can go pretty big in stats. But yeah, looking super tough for the Afanis still at the moment. Spindle is, again, a massive deal here.
Yep. I believe Bacon earlier said they only run one festival in this deck. So this is kind of a mixed deck a little bit, which is really interesting to see. They are face to face here on this. Interesting. Yeah, Cone Man in here. You got some Yongsu. Very interesting deck. What do we got with Afanis? Afanis has some Moth to a Flame, some Belasenka. Interestingly enough, there are those cards, but no tree out for Afanis yet, or maybe ever.
Yeah, you're totally right. And mentioning that one of Festival in the Tasia deck as well, this is actually the sort of thing that I think is actually really good for tournament play, specifically when there are known deck lists. Festival is the sort of thing it's almost better when your opponent has to worry about it, and then you just get to hold the mystery the entire time. Did you just put that card in mana? Who knows? Is it just hanging out just to win the game when you think you've won everything on the tumult? It's actually really good in that sort of way. You don't necessarily want it to be your main win condition when you are playing a hero like Tasia that does do a pretty good job of contesting the tumult thanks to the additional stats that the hero ability gives you. But just being able to have that as an additional sort of threat in your arsenal is really strong.
I also like Hua Mulan just as a character. I feel like You do not see her very often in a Faunus, but this I lose fleeting is pretty good. I It's just not played very often. I
Hmm?
think there's reasons why in a Faunus, but I like it for Basira. But yet again, maybe just better options out there.
Well, you know what else is not played very often? Flutter of Moths, which is
Yeah.
also coming out in addition to the Swa Mulan. Unfortunately, though, if there's another character that's a plant for the Tasia, that should then be enough for the Tasia to win.
Yeah, that's just too much of a spell. It can be discounted if there were exhausted cards. I'm wondering if this was a Withering Tree deck that just didn't get online. I
Oh,
don't.
I missed that they don't even need another plant. It's just enough on its own because of the expedition that Hua Mulan is weak on, unfortunately, being that forest.
Oh yeah, just 1 point in forest is all it takes. Nice.
Hey, well done then. Tasty Bacon taking a win. Oh, with some a cool Saskia there as well, which makes things very much big enough.
Yes. Rare Saskia on paper seems so great, but I have found it does actually not work that well that often. I have recently switched over to the common. Um, One, it doesn't take a rare slot. Two, it's actually a 2/2/2 instead of a 1/1/1. And then it does only boost one character in nature, but it does still give it two boosts. So I had hoped that it would go a lot more burr than it does. Maybe if I had some mass anchoring uniques.
Yeah, that was that. I think you're totally right there. I think there is a concept in other card games of cards that are considered win more sort of cards as being pretty bad, and I think that might be one of the more key examples of that with Altered as it currently stands. Like, yes, if you get to play Rare Saskia and give boosts to like four different characters for a total like a massive stat swing, like 9 stats or something for 3 mana, looks really good. But those games where you have like four anchored characters in play that stuck around and let you play a Saskia onto it, you're typically winning those games anyway, and you're spending a rare slot for that. And it does indeed cost you the stat points, as you mentioned, just natively 1/1/1 instead of 2/2/2. That can be pretty important. So yeah, I think you're right on that.
Let me refresh here. I did open the table 5 sarcasm game because it's only at 40%, but seeing the result of that game, it did shoot Tasty Bacon up to 15th. So and Pink Fission down to 20th. That was the kind of game that I was talking about. It kind of holds in the balance these players hitting top 16. Of course, it is still likely that based on some other results, Tasty Bacon might just barely fall out. But I have not had the time to double check that enough. So we'll see at the end here. The Sarcasm versus Diamond Black game is a Nevenka versus Basira.
I have a feeling that's actually going to be enough for Tasty Bacon, but it's going to come down to tiebreakers as well. Might be sort of 50-50.
Yeah, well, congratulations. If your first AWOL event, you also qualify for the Invitational. Well done. Especially, I believe you were saying you had some one-offs and things like that. So very well done on the Tasia deck.
I love that though. Someone showing up to their first event like that with, rares where they just don't have other inclusions, uniques where it's just the 3 Amino uniques they have, and picking up some wins, potentially getting that invite. That would be really cool. Even if you don't get the invite, it's really cool. But
Yep, for sure. I think people should try out the tournaments more. I know there's some people that are pretty adamant about not doing it or that they're not competitive enough. I think it's a really good learning experience and can teach you a lot. And at worst, if you start having a bad night, you can always just drop. The karma hit is not bad at all. If you just play a couple more games, you can earn it back very easily.
This game here, seeing again Basira against Nevenka, I'm in awe about the heroes that we've been seeing so much of today. Super cool. But yeah, Chiron and Helping Hand currently a little duo in the reserve for the Basira player, just threatening to keep doing similar things again and again. They are ahead on the Tumult, but Nevenka is ahead both in terms of resources in cards in hand, but also resources in terms of mana, which is sort of a big deal.
Yeah, the Spacira has actively made the choice to not mana because Nevenka doesn't have any kind of ramp anywhere that would have gotten the advantage. Um, Very interesting choice to do it twice. I will do it here and there as Tasia, depending on what's in my hand. Um, Maybe counting on, a clue. It only costs 4 mana. It disrupts your opponent. Maybe they'll get away with it. As of right now, they are. As you said, the advantages are going to start stacking in Nevenka's favor.
Clute, pretty sweet here. Does dodge some potential removal from the Nevenka. Um, Also just pretty decent in terms of stats, actually, as well. Something like a Haven Sarengar wouldn't be enough on its own in order to block it. Yeah, but we are definitely seeing multiple Ouroboros Inkcasters coming out. Would be enough to take the hero expedition, but can something prevent the advance on the companion is the big question here. And it's going to be really important. Pretty much at all costs, you want to avoid giving Basira the chance of being adjacent, where bad things can happen.
All right, sarcasm. We do see again, though, that Diamond Black is negative in the time, and sarcasm has 9 minutes to spare.
Yeah, we've actually seen this from this Basira player a lot. They've been playing a little bit more slowly and methodically, but I don't think they've actually run out of time to the point where it cost them a round. Could be wrong on that, but it's been close multiple times.
Yeah, we haven't, at least on stream, seen any that have ended due to time. Usually I check when it was created. That goes into account somehow. So the game started 22 minutes ago. It was created 24 minutes ago. If we go to a max total of 35, we'd have about, I lost what number I had in my head, 24, so 6, 11. So we should have 3-ish more minutes if that calculation is correct and BGA solves it that way. Yeah, because the time does not say like once your opponent goes negative a certain amount, you just win. It does go to about 35 minutes of total game time, unless the game started late or a player took too long to join, a couple different factors.
Currently a snowball commando coming out and preventing this Aklut from doing anything this day might actually be a super big deal here. It's also on pretty perfect expeditions for that snowball commando. Suddenly, Nevenka is actually looking pretty good in this spot, especially given the fact that we know that those Ouroboros Inkcasters picked up a small step giant leap the past turn. So a single expedition progression here would be enough for the Nevenka. And I think they're going to get it. They might just get the double expedition, though, which would also do it.
Yeah, playing out that Thespian. Yeah, so this isn't going to do too much in the way of ability currently, but it is another body. If Basira decides to use that intimidation, there's still the other two, and then Basira would have no stats. This Axiom Salvager is a pretty good option to have in reserve with the two Havens. You got to be pretty lucky on what it resupplies, though. and that is not it.
Yeah, most characters here should lock it up for Nevenka.
There's still also the Navenka ability. Oh, and a cloth cocoon.
Cloth
That'll do it.
Cocoon also does it. Yeah. Well done, the sarcasm. Barely taking down Diamond Black's Basira. Really timely Snowball Commando common. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, I love Snowball Commando. One thing that I really do enjoy about the Trial by Frost set is they set out to make cards that felt like you were in the setting. And I think there are a good amount of cards that really give you that feeling. If you've never taken the time to think about Snowball Commando, in my brain, it feels exactly like a snowball fight. If you throw a snowball at someone, there's a chance you're going to get hit back by a snowball.
Pretty solid chance even. And yeah, unfortunately for Tasty Bacon, the tiebreakers barely didn't work out, but we have our full top 16 then.
Oh no, so
Yeah,
close, so
it really
close.
was.
But good first performance. You'll get them next time. I can go ahead and quickly read the top 16. We have Kaifu, who went undefeated on that awesome cycle Sierra with Three Potter Otters. And then down the line, Marks, Freeloader, Fienturi, Supletivo, Demarian, Neo, Arthur Bacalar, M. Kamui, Symbiosis, Sarcasm, Rhubarb, Buchox, Mandarin PJ, Geo El Amigo, and Diamond Black, just barely making that cut into 16th place. So thank you everyone for playing. Hop on over here to the interview screen as I talk to this wonderful shroom that is Keelan Guy. What are your final thoughts on the AWOL Wednesday event we just saw?
Really, really fun event. Saw massive deck diversity, which was really cool. Not so much a Faunus, actually. I think that might be one of the reasons why we saw so many cool decks, even towards the top of the standings. There was some Sigismar here and there, but also not in the numbers that we've seen. I think in general, a lot of these players just looking to play things that they're really excited about and more interested in, possibly testing out some cool Tumult Championships ideas outside of just the big two top dogs there. But all the decks that did really well in this event looked super competitive, which was nice. Two Sigismar players did manage 5-1, which is really good though still for that hero. So nothing to be disappointed in for the Sigismar fans out there. But yeah, overall, I also have to say, if you're looking to try to qualify for AWOL Invitational, highly recommend showing up on a Wednesday. It has been a little bit lower number of players for the moment, and you just need to reach top 16. So we would like that if you show up to that event, because more players is better tournament as far as most of us are concerned. But also, hey, it can be beneficial to you. Yeah, try to show up if you can, if you're looking to claim that invite. And yeah, otherwise, yeah, I very much enjoyed myself. How about you? Any main final thoughts on the event for you, Cole?
Yeah, there was a lot of excitement. I think even some of the Aphanis and Siggy decks we did see were a little different. I did not have to watch Runefolk keep people hostage too much, so that was great. I don't think on stream we saw a single small step played. We saw a person or two drop them. I don't remember seeing one played. And yeah, it's just really great. I've seen some new names and some new names doing fairly well, which is great. And I definitely recommend giving it a shot if you have been on the fence. It doesn't hurt. And like I said, if you get, 2 rounds in, 3 rounds in, and you've lost every game and you just want to go to bed, you can just click that drop from the tournament button. a lot of the players that play every event weekly, if they lose their first round, they'll just drop out, go about their day. So always great to be here with Keelan guy. What and when and why not sooner will you have a YouTube video out on your channel?
I don't know, I'm bad at all that stuff. I keep getting so busy doing other things like commentary for this sort of event. Always enjoy hanging out with you and doing some commentary. Wasn't originally scheduled for it, but was very happy to join in, which is awesome. But I'm gonna give you my typical spiel, which is that tons of altered tournaments coming up. Highly recommend tuning in tomorrow evening, at least for European time zones, for the AQZ Championship event. Handy Andy will execute me publicly if I do not shout him out with that. So you can check that out on Twitch at twitch.tv/PandyAndy. That'll be tomorrow evening. Very typical time zone. I think it's 7:30 p.m. for most of Europe. So yeah, hang out for that. Should be really cool. Or play in it. That would also be great. We're happy to have you. Otherwise, I believe Team Spaghetti Alt have regular Friday tournaments at the moment, which is awesome. Of course, on most weekends, there's now Ace on Sundays, but there's also coming up the wild card week, I think you've called it, which is then on a Tuesday, which is going to be pretty sweet and a little bit closer to European time zones, which I'm very excited about. And then otherwise, of course, our regular broadcasting of AWOL, both on Monday and then after the No Unique Championship on Wednesday next week. So we'll be very excited to have all of you back for that then. And then my other last little shout out I can say is Team AQZ is potentially looking to bring in a couple more people, especially in North America's time zones. If any of you are like pretty comfortable with Altered in general and want to work with the team, potentially reach out. I think it would be cool to get some more active people in the US time zones as well, and that should give some more practice to some of our US guys who've been a little bit out of it recently. So that could be good. So in case anyone's interested, just hit us up.
Requirements are that you cannot play Siggy or Faunus because that's already taken care
I said nothing about that. Hey, we have
of.
as well, to be fair.
Yeah. Well, thank you once again to everyone. AWOL will see you back on Monday for the EU tournament. And then, like Keelan Guy said, a lot of options. Make sure you go support your local altered scene. If you have any questions about that or you need any help with anything, you're always welcome to @ me on any Discord where I'm at. I spend way too much time in the main Discord and then also over at Altered Corner. And a heartfelt shout out to Simon for putting together AWOL, and a not so heartfelt shout out to Blue for putting together some of the streaming stuff so that we can see you here tonight. And I think that's about it. You ready to finally go to bed?
Yeah, I'm happy, tired, ready for bed.
All right.
Thanks for having me, Cole.
Yeah, thank you. And I will see everyone